Stroking Nick on his lap, Daichi Asakura mutters about his dull past, convinced his new exchange skill can buy him anything in this realm. Before he can celebrate, a massive monster paw looms from the shadows, sending him scrambling back with Nick clutched tight. In this unfamiliar realm, Daichi Asakura intends to prove his true worth. An armed carriage rolls through the dense forest, flanked by mounted escorts and vigilant guards on foot. Her companion calls out to Karina, who lowers her hood with an uneasy frown. Back on Earth, Daichi Asakura mourns the grandfather who raised him after his parents died, leaving him entirely alone. Lying across his bed, he stares at his phone, stunned that 10 days have already slipped past. A cold rejection letter from Kawakado's corporate recruiters glares back from the screen. Tossing the phone aside, he stares at the ceiling, haunted by unpaid student debts and hollow promises. Society demanded practical employment over non-existent dreams, yet corporate life was his only hope to honor his grandfather. A stray cat leaps onto his chest, receiving gentle strokes as Daichi Asakura prepares for another grim afternoon of job interviews. Spotting an antique box on his mattress, he opens the lid and slips one of 3 ornate rings onto his finger. Nick snatches a second ring between his teeth, and the moment metal touches metal, a blinding flash erupts. Blinking through the afterglow, Daichi Asakura discovers he is standing atop a rugged mountain peak. Endless wilderness stretches out in every direction, prompting him to pull Nick tight against his chest. Seconds ago, he was lying in bed hungry, but the missing heirloom rings point directly to supernatural transport. Both rings vanish from his finger and Nick's jaws, confirming the artifacts triggered this bizarre shift. This is no animated fantasy trope. An actual alternate world sprawls right before his feet. A faint rustle draws his attention downward, revealing that he is standing barefoot on raw soil. Praying for an overpowered cheat skill, he shouts command words into the wind, only to meet empty air. Stranded with no obvious system, he turns to Nick for comfort, only to find the cat levitating midair. Stumbling back in shock, Daichi Asakura gasps as the flying feline casually perches on top of his head. Flat on his back in the grass, he groans at his grim odds, curious what other hidden talents Nick possesses. A glowing game interface materializes, listing Daichi Asakura with spatial storage, exchange, and evaluation skills. Realizing the system belongs to him, he marvels at this classic cheat ability and prepares to test the exchange function. A quick assessment of his floating companion reveals Nick wields spiritual magic of earth, water, fire, and wind. With no lonely life in Japan worth returning to, Daichi Asakura resolves to master evaluation and build a new future here. Touching a massive trunk at the forest edge, evaluation feeds him precise data, 40 meters tall with 8-meter branches. A single tap on the confirmation prompt vanishes the 40-meter tree, leaving him clutching his head in astonishment. Nick scrambles in terror as the tree vanishes, forcing Daichi Asakura to release him with hasty apologies. Asking his companion to stay back, he targets another towering tree and stores it within seconds. Nick sniffs the empty crater, until Daichi Asakura summons the tree right back into place, startling the cat. Soothing Nick after another startled hiss, he turns his focus toward testing the exchange system's true limits. System credits gained from stored timber allow him to browse the catalog for durable footwear. Finalizing the transaction equips him with brand new sneakers to protect his bare feet on the rough terrain. Survival and wealth are now within reach, filling him with fresh ambition for this new life. Massive boulders and ancient trees vanish into his inventory as Daichi Asakura gathers resources across the glade. Pondering whether to purchase a modern chainsaw, he pauses when Nick turns toward the dark brush and hisses. Heavy footfalls echo through the trees as a monstrous black tiger charges straight toward their position. The predator's deafening roar knocks Daichi Asakura backward, prompting him to target the beast with spatial storage. Living creatures resist the skill completely, mirroring how birds and insects were excluded from stored trees. Lacking conventional weapons, he forces down his panic and calculates an ambush before the beast closes the gap. With a 100-meter buffer between them, he reassures Nick and prepares to deploy his spatial skill. Timing the tiger's sprint, Daichi Asakura removes the earth beneath its paws, plunging the monster into a deep pit. Into the fresh trench drops a steel shipping container filled with freezing liquid nitrogen. Before he can claim victory, Nick tenses up as the furious beast claws its way out of the crater, still alive. Panic grips Daichi Asakura, but Nick steps forward and unleashes his own magical offense. Condensed spiritual water magic erupts from Nick, striking the beast like armor armor-piercing artillery rounds, shrugging off the spiritual barrage. The predator advances, forcing Daichi Asakura to summon a solid timber barricade. Behind the timber wall, he watches the tiger stagger forward with strange, sluggish movements. With one last gamble left, Daichi Asakura drops a massive boulder straight from his spatial inventory onto the beast. The monster lies dead, and he tests his storage skill by stashing the entire carcass away without a hitch. After setting perimeter traps and buying fresh supplies, he launches a modern scout drone to survey the surrounding forest. The camera feed reveals a massive caravan passing through, so he strokes Nick and decides it is time to make first contact. Two mounted scouts from the caravan spot Daichi Asakura resting on a boulder with his cat, and he offers a calm wave. When they ask if he travels alone, he gestures to his furry companion, catching the hooded rider completely off guard. She admits domestic cats are common, yet none with such majestic fur, prompting Daichi Asakura to introduce himself and Nick. Pulling down her hood, Alicia Hartland reveals her aristocratic charm, and Daichi Asakura invites her down to pet the cat. Before Alicia Hartland can reach out, Karina thrusts a drawn sword between them, sharply demanding to know if he is truly alone. Daichi Asakura sticks to his cover story as an inexperienced traveling merchant, immediately offering to display his wares. Pulling an impossibly large assortment from a tiny pouch, he presents an electric flashlight that leaves both women stunned. Karina suspects a spatial magic item, but Alicia Hartland senses the glowing torch and detects no mana within it. Their questions confirm to Daichi Asakura that spatial vaults and magic tools are recognized concepts in this world. Rolling the flashlight across the grass toward their horses, he invites them to inspect the odd device themselves. Awed by the brilliant beam, Alicia Hartland marvels at the light, baffled by the complete absence of enchantment. Learning that Karina is an escort for Alicia Hartland, Daichi Asakura asks permission to travel with them to the next town. Alicia Hartland argues that a rogue would never act so openly, but Karina keeps her guard high, calling him too suspicious. Offering to surrender his gear, he only makes Karina scoff, noting his uncalloused hands hold no weapon training at all. A sheepish laugh escapes Daichi Asakura as he concedes her point, winning agreement from Karina to bring him before the caravan leader. Leaping straight from his grasp, Nick lands comfortably in the arms of Alicia Hartland, who instantly fawns over him. Left hanging mid-handshake, Daichi Asakura awkwardly turns toward Karina with an extended hand to thank her instead. Karina agrees to escort him to the caravan master, but orders him to maintain a strict 1-meter distance. Feigning confusion at her mage accusation, he gets cut off as Karina warns that nobody survives these wilds without combat magic. With a nod of compliance, Daichi Asakura agrees to follow behind without closing the gap. Remarking on the intimidating reach of her blade, Daichi Asakura earns a sharp glare for dropping his polite facade. Casual and unbothered, he shrugs that there is no need for stiff formality between people of the exact same age. Karina snaps that she speaks however she pleases, warning him not to give her steel a reason to taste his blood. Ahead of them, Alicia Hartland remains completely entranced by the flashlight as the full scale of the convoy comes into view. A leading carriage halts, and Klaus Bertram steps down to ask if this stranger seeks escort to Karam. Placing a hand over his chest, Daichi Asakura offers a polite bow before Klaus Bertram introduces himself as head of the Bertram Company. Unsure of the merchant's true influence, Daichi Asakura acts with humble deference as Klaus Bertram asks what payment he offers. Producing a sealed pouch, Daichi Asakura offers it for appraisal, prompting Lloyd to step forward and hand it to Klaus Bertram. Inside the pouch, Klaus Bertram discovers the spice and gasps, asking if the traveler is recklessly generous or blind to its value. Daichi Asakura explains that trade values shift by region, though such fine black pepper remains a prized luxury even in his homeland. Klaus Bertram praises his straightforward candor, pleased when Daichi Asakura claims his grandfather taught him to trade with absolute integrity. Matching his honesty, Klaus Bertram admits this spice commands an astronomical price here, asking for the total quantity in the pouch. Across the entire continent, pepper cultivation remains impossible, leaving it an imported luxury reserved strictly for high nobility. Lacking an official trade permit for overseas goods, Daichi Asakura realizes his rare wares instantly mark him as an outsider. Given his distinct foreign appearance, Klaus Bertram warns that an unregistered traveler could face severe legal trouble. Thanking him for the warning, Daichi Asakura asks Klaus Bertram to pause the spice valuation to see what else he might purchase. Eager to establish trade routes in in this kingdom. Daichi Asakura asks the seasoned merchant master for practical business guidance. A hearty chuckle escapes Klaus Bertram, amused by the young traveler's naive assumption that commercial secrets come free of charge. Since mentorship demands a steep price, Daichi Asakura asks plainly how much pepper it will take to secure his support. Klaus Bertram flashes 5 fingers, setting a steep fee that proves business in this world is strictly transactional. Unflinching, Daichi Asakura pulls 5 full pouches from his pack, demonstrating instant respect for their newfound partnership. Klaus Bertram orders Lloyd to secure the pepper bags before turning his gaze toward Karina with new instructions. He directs Karina to safeguard Alicia Heartland and escort Daichi Asakura to Karam, earning enthusiastic approval from the young lady. Daichi Asakura extends an eager hand in thanks, but both Karina and Alicia Heartland simply bow and march ahead, bypassing his grip. Catching up, he asks Alicia Heartland and Karina to drop the stiff honorifics and address him simply as Daichi Asakura. As a flustered Alicia Heartland hesitates, Daichi Asakura presents Nick to her face, whose soft meow completely melts her resolve. Daichi Asakura exchanges a glance with Nick and lets go, sending the cat falling straight into Karina's eager arms. Stepping closer with a grin, Daichi Asakura introduces himself to an embarrassed Karina as she hugs Nick tight, a teasing smirk on his face. Daichi Asakura walks beside Karina until she flusteredly yells the word master. Faking disappointment, Daichi Asakura finally prompts Karina to drop formalities, though Nick glares in obvious irritation. Across the tent-filled camp, Klaus Bertram sits at a table and asks Lloyd for his honest thoughts on Daichi Asakura. Lloyd points out Daichi Asakura's flawless speech, noble manners, and spotless hands, traits Klaus Bertram observed as well. Inquiring about the rare pepper, Klaus Bertram listens as Lloyd assumes Daichi Asakura is a sheltered, overly generous noble heir. Klaus Bertram notes that keeping such pristine pepper proves Daichi Asakura wields storage magic, marking him as a future titan. Divine storage freezes time completely within an infinite pocket dimension governed by the user's mana. Unlike divine vaults, ordinary magic bags offer only limited capacity, and time inside never stops flowing. Realizing Daichi Asakura feigned using a magic bag, Klaus Bertram resolves to discover what treasures lie inside his storage. To guide Daichi Asakura through this unfamiliar land, Klaus Bertram orders Lloyd to keep treating the youth with absolute courtesy. Every attendant and worker across the Bertram Company camp receives strict orders to show Daichi Asakura total respect. Passing by a tent, Daichi Asakura notices 2 traders proudly displaying an ornate glass goblet inside a velvet box. Such mediocre glassware commanding an exorbitant price in this realm leaves Daichi Asakura genuinely astonished. From beside the cookpots, Karat calls out to Karina, asking for help lighting the camp hearth. Curious why Karat relies on Karina, Daichi Asakura watches to see how fire magic is cast. Voicing his desire to witness real magic, Daichi Asakura receives a confident nod from Karina. Karat thanks Karina as the swordswoman raises her palm above the logs, sparking instant flames without needing flint. True spiritual fire magic blazes instantly at her command, revealing practical power far different from Nick's combat spells. Hearing that, Karina assists whenever off-duty. Daichi Asakura watches her move between cauldrons to ignite every hearth. When Alicia Heartland explains that non-mages rely on flint or magic tools, Daichi Asakura asks if mana is required to activate them. Social standing hinges entirely on magical strength, forcing mana-less commoners to rely on cumbersome tools to survive. Reflecting on his own world, Daichi Asakura asks whether human worth here depends entirely on magic, catching Karina off guard. A crestfallen look on Karat's face makes Daichi Asakura flinch at his own insensitivity. Clamping a hand over his mouth, Daichi Asakura offers a hasty apology, though Karat softly insists she is used to harsh reality. Though lacking mana, Karat smiles through lingering melancholy, grateful to work among kind folk at Bertram Company. Staring at his palms, Daichi Asakura resolves not to use his exchange skill selfishly, but to empower those born without magic, overturning this realm's rigid hierarchy by putting modern tools into common hands sparks genuine excitement within him. Calling Karat over, Daichi Asakura presents her with a modern lighter to start her fires effortlessly. A flick of the lighter sparks an instant flame, leaving Karina and Alicia Heartland marveling at the gem-like plastic casing. Offered the lighter, Karat recoils in panic, protesting that she cannot accept such a priceless treasure. With an easy chuckle, Daichi Asakura drops the lighter to prove its strength before pressing it into Carrot's trembling hands. Testing the flame against dry leaves, Carrot watches fire flare instantly to catch the stove logs. Pure awe fills Carrot as she wonders what kind of miraculous homeland Daichi Asakura comes from. Vowing to make daily life easier for manaless citizens, Daichi Asakura receives Carrot's heartfelt belief in his future success. When Carrot attempts to return the gift, she freezes in disbelief as Daichi Asakura gifts it to her permanently. Grabbing his coat in desperate protest, Carrot listens as Daichi Asakura laughs and insists the trinket costs practically nothing. A scarred, towering warrior in chainmail interrupts, demanding to know what Karina is doing out here. Noting the warrior's imposing build, Daichi Asakura is introduced by Karina to Captain Jeffrey as Klaus Bertram's trade guest. An outstretched hand from Daichi Asakura seals a polite greeting as he explains he is traveling alongside their caravan to Karam. Captain Jeffrey declares his role leading Bertram Company security, and Karina adds that Klaus Bertram ordered her to escort their guest. Confirming the escort assignment, Captain Jeffrey invites Daichi Asakura along for a tour of the perimeter. Politely turning down Captain Jeffrey's offer for drinks, Daichi Asakura departs, leaving Carrot clutching her lighter in awe. Resting inside his tent with Nick asleep on his chest, Daichi Asakura wonders if handing out plastic lighters drew too much attention. Karina calls from outside the tent flap to check if Daichi Asakura is still awake, receiving his prompt confirmation. Apologizing for the late hour, Karina explains Klaus Bertram requested an audience, prompting Daichi Asakura to check his wrist. After slipping his watch out of sight and donning his coat, Daichi Asakura accompanies Karina past rows of watchful guards. Reaching the main pavilion, Karina leads Daichi Asakura inside to find Klaus Bertram and Alicia Hartland waiting at the table. With an apology for the late hour, Klaus Bertram pulls out a chair and invites Daichi Asakura to sit and discuss business. Klaus Bertram set a wrapped cloth bundle on the table, praising the goods Daichi Asakura provided before bringing up the lighter. Memories of handing it to Carrot flashed back as Klaus Bertram raised a hand, clarifying the girl only sought advice on the unknown artifact. With a grim expression, Klaus Bertram insisted that Daichi Asakura had grossly underestimated the item he planned to sell as basic kitchen gear. Such a device belonged exclusively to wealthy nobles, fetching an enormous fortune here despite costing nothing in the other world. A shake of the head confirmed it surpassed standard tools because anyone without mana could ignite it, though its casing created another issue. The transparent material resembled fine crystal jewelry, reminding Daichi Asakura of townsfolk gossiping about exorbitant glass prices. Flooding the market with these wares would inevitably trigger a scramble among merchants to flip them to high-ranking nobles. Unintended fallout could easily follow, prompting Klaus Bertram to reaffirm his support and ask how Daichi Asakura intended to proceed. Upending this world's entire economic structure had never been the goal, yet plain excuses would solve nothing. Recalling the demand among high society, Daichi Asakura produced an exquisite glass rose mounted on a polished stand. Alicia Hartland gasped in pure awe at the sculpture, leaving Klaus Bertram stunned as Daichi Asakura realized he had gone overboard. Shouts echoed across the tent just as Karina drew her cold steel, leveling the blade directly at Daichi Asakura's throat. Klaus Bertram rushed to calm her down, explaining his outburst so Karina could sheath her blade and bow in deep apology. Exhaling in relief, Klaus Bertram apologized for shouting. Daichi Asakura merely recalled Karina's strict 1-meter boundary rule. Unfazed by the drawn steel, Daichi Asakura claimed complete trust in Karina, even if pure shock had actually frozen him in place. Once tempers settled and Daichi Asakura excused the guard, Klaus Bertram asked Karina to step back so negotiations could resume. Presenting the radiant glass art that outshone raw gems, Daichi Asakura left Klaus Bertram questioning if this pristine material was even glass. Reaching into his pack, Daichi Asakura pulled out an array of glass figures and lighters that gleamed with an unfamiliar luster. To secure massive profits without disrupting tool markets, the plan was to sell the glass for top coin and include lighters as luxury bonuses. Every noble purchasing an expensive glass piece would receive a complimentary lighter, quietly introducing the artifact into elite households. Klaus Bertram clarified whether this strategy aimed to seed the lighters across high-end commerce. Recognizing the brilliance behind the scheme, Klaus Bertram agreed to partner up, accepting Daichi Asakura's outstretched hand. A firm handshake handshake sealed the pact, marking their first major triumph in local commerce. Outside the tent, Karina bowed low to apologize, but Alicia Heartland insisted that the surprise had startled everyone. Daichi Asakura took the blame himself, assuring Karina that she had simply performed her duty with admirable vigilance. Noticing the lingering gloom on both their faces, Daichi Asakura looked for a quick way to lighten the mood. Passing Nick directly into the arms of Alicia Heartland softened her frown, prompting Daichi Asakura to praise her warm smile. Blushing with endearing shyness, Alicia Heartland flustered under his gaze as Karina observed them with a stoic expression. Curious gazes locked onto Daichi Asakura. Once word spread of his gift to Karat, with Karina noting the camp wanted to gauge his character. Wild rumors ran rampant, painting him as an exiled prince, a wandering champion, or a fugitive pursuing forbidden romance. Amused by their vivid imaginations, Daichi Asakura chuckled as Karina clarified those wild theories belonged solely to the camp. Desperate screams shattered the peace as villagers sprinted out of the tree line, fleeing from ferocious beasts. A scout yelled that a swarm of royal monkeys was charging, prompting Karina to draw her blade and shield her companions. Guards clashed against the pack with flaming arrows and spears, holding the perimeter as Daichi Asakura checked their line. Confidence in her voice, Karina assured him they held the upper hand as she tracked the chaotic skirmish. Alarms sounded from the southern tree line where 10 additional royal monkeys broke through the brush. Captain Jeffrey rallied his troops to counterattack, leaving Daichi Asakura debating whether to step in and expose his secret gear. Tapping Nick on the forehead beneath his tunic, Daichi Asakura ordered the familiar to stay concealed and withhold its magic. Accessing his spatial storage for weapons, Daichi Asakura listened as Karina ordered Alicia Heartland to scan the woods for more royal monkeys. Scanning the periphery, Daichi Asakura spotted movement in the tall grass and warned Karina about royal monkeys flanking from the east. Beasts burst from the brush with terrifying speed, closing the distance before Daichi Asakura could draw a weapon. A razor-sharp claw slashed toward Daichi Asakura's flank, but Karina intercepted the blow and impaled the beast on her sword. 2 agile royal monkeys slipped through the line and charged straight at Alicia Heartland mid-cast, prompting a shout from Daichi Asakura. Exploding forward with earth-shattering force, Daichi Asakura unleashed a devastating roundhouse kick directly at the monster's skull. The beast turned right into the heavy strike, its body tumbling across the dirt as astonished soldiers looked on. The second attacker, reaching for Alicia Heartland, took a crushing blow to the forehead and collapsed cold, leaving both girls in utter shock. Tumbling to the turf from the collision, Daichi Asakura pushed himself up and asked the tearful Alicia Heartland if she was unharmed. Hauling Daichi Asakura upright for a quick retreat, they spun around as more royal monkeys emerged behind them alongside Karina. Karina cleaved through one beast, and Daichi Asakura struck another. Yet a lurking predator crept directly behind Alicia Heartland. As fangs gaped toward her, Daichi Asakura lunged across the grass to shield Alicia Heartland with his own body as she screamed in terror. Karina screams across the chaos to warn Daichi Asakura, pinned down by a beast of her own. At this rate, the claws will tear right through him. Razor-sharp fangs sink deep into his shoulder, yet no pain registers. Daichi Asakura braces for agony, only to feel nothing at all. Memory flashes back to Alicia Heartland channeling spells without catalysts. This is pure physical reinforcement magic at work. Back in the woods, a flying stone bounced off his skull without a scratch just before the ambush, channeling energy straight into the steel. Daichi Asakura draws a hidden blade from his coat and drives it hard into the beast. Piercing monster hide feels as effortless as sinking a fork into soft cake. Seeing Karina hard-pressed, Daichi Asakura orders her to step back before flanking the beast to bury his blade into its spine. The creature roars in fury. A 9-inch blade cannot reach its heart, and he yells at Nick to hold firm. Losing his footing, Daichi Asakura tumbles backward under the beast's wicked grin, right as Karina leaps in to sever its neck. Dark blood sprays across the dirt and her armor as the monster crashes down, and Karina flicks her sword clean with a crisp snap. Wiping her blood-splattered cheek with a sigh, Karina rushes over as the levitation spell cuts out early, dropping Daichi Asakura onto the dirt. Daichi Asakura flashes a thumbs up from the ground, checking if anyone is hurt as Nick crawls out from his coat with an exhausted sigh. Both girls offer a hand, with Karina snapping that he should worry about his own skin instead of checking on them, earning a nod from Alicia Heartland. Hauling him up, Karina confirms that enemy numbers are dropping fast, and Daichi Asakura Asakura asks if they should reinforce the front line. Karina grips her hilt with a heavy sigh, furious with herself for letting a beast sink its fangs into him under her watch. Noticing her distress, Daichi Asakura questions if the royal monkeys are truly broken, just as commotion echoes from the tree line. Overwhelmed by the defenders, the beasts scatter into the trees, prompting a smug smirk from Karina that Daichi Asakura finds undeniably charming. Spotting blood on his palm, Daichi Asakura summons a clean towel from his storage, which Alicia Heartland immediately reaches to take. Alicia Heartland moistens the cloth with water magic to gently clean his face, ignoring his protests about the freezing chill. Daichi Asakura asks Alicia Heartland if she just cast spiritual water magic, curious about how it differs from ordinary magical artifacts. Spiritual magic commands the four natural elements through the caster's own soul, far surpassing the fixed charges of basic artifacts. Absorbing how elemental spirits rule this world's power scale, Daichi Asakura is caught off guard when Alicia Heartland asks how he recognized it. Scrambling for an excuse, Daichi Asakura bluffs that calling it spiritual magic was merely a polite compliment, puzzling her further. In his homeland, spiritual arts carry immense prestige, so mistaking her refined spell for a cheap artifact would have been an insult. Narrowing their eyes, both Karina and Alicia Heartland stare at him with sheer suspicion. Karina reveals that barely 20 people in the entire kingdom, and only 100 on the continent, can wield true spiritual magic. Alicia Heartland warns that he must study this world before trading, and Karina sighs in defeat, accepting her role as his traveling tutor. Daichi Asakura and Nick offer custom figurines in thanks, but the girls firmly decline just as victorious roars erupt across the camp. With the skirmish over, Daichi Asakura proposes checking the front line, where Karina notes his supplies might treat the wounded. Questioning why the royal monkeys launched a coordinated strike, Karina casts a grim look toward two captive scouts held under guard. Knowing spiritual magic draws dangerous attention, Daichi Asakura resolves to pass Nick's abilities off as artifact enchantments. Lying in her tent, Alicia Heartland replays the image of Daichi Asakura checking on their safety from the dirt, finding him utterly fascinating. His bravery is undeniable, yet taking on ferocious royal monkeys without standard weapons is something she has never witnessed before. She relives the terrifying second the beast lunged, only for Daichi Asakura to throw his own body in the way and take the bite. His calm smile amidst the chaos echoes the legendary heroes from her childhood tales as she rests across from Karina in the quiet tent. Tossing under her blanket, Alicia Heartland cannot shake how Daichi Asakura treated her normally despite discovering her rare spiritual magic. Where others showed fear or greed, he offered genuine warmth, leaving her flustered face buried deep beneath the sheets. At dawn, the caravan sets out after Karina scolds Daichi Asakura for refusing a horse, forcing him into a carriage beside both girls. Rattled by every bump on the rough road, Daichi Asakura looks out the window as Karina defends the carriage as top quality. Mounted guards trot alongside the carriage, instantly averting their eyes the moment Daichi Asakura glances in their direction. Karina confirms the men are spooked, leaving Daichi Asakura baffled by when he became such a terrifying figure. Between bizarre breakfast habits and his modern lighter, Daichi Asakura has left the entire company baffled by his foreign ways. Karina points out that his modern tent radiated an unnatural glow all night, though Daichi Asakura shrugs it off as normal back home. Holding her head in exasperation, Karina orders him to give advance warning before revealing any more otherworldly inventions. Daichi Asakura agrees to inform Klaus Bertram first, prompting an intrigued Alicia Heartland to ask for a private demonstration of his gear. Alicia Heartland flushes red at the midnight invitation, leaving Daichi Asakura panicked because he assumed she was a minor. Awkwardly stammering an apology about her young age, Daichi Asakura freezes Alicia Heartland until Karina snaps that she is already 20. Jumping in disbelief, Daichi Asakura learns Karina is 19 and shouts that he is 22, making him the eldest. Karina blinks in surprise as Alicia Heartland giggles, teasing that a grown man should hardly act like such a chaotic child. Pounding the cushion in mock outrage over mistaken age, Daichi Asakura listens as both girls soothe him with compliments. With a soft sigh, Daichi Asakura admits he misjudged their ages too, prompting Karina to drop the subject as a pathfinder ahead flattens the trail. Bound captives riding the trailing wagons strike Daichi Asakura as cruel, yet Karina warns him not to waste any sympathy on them. 3,500 hunters marched into the woods to capture infant royal monkeys, yet only 5 survived the disastrous expedition. Learning infant royal monkeys are enslaved with collars for military labor makes Daichi Asakura shudder in disgust. Their black market value is staggering, 20 gold coins for a 2-month-old infant, dropping to 10 for a 6-month-old. When Daichi Asakura asks if the captives are outlaws, the party explains that provoking the royal monkeys provoked a disaster they must answer for. Failure to pay their heavy fines will force the captives into slavery, exposing the ruthless financial reality of the Adventurers Guild. Karina smirks at his remarks since she is an adventurer herself, prompting Daichi Asakura to apologize as she notes steady contracts actually pay well. 2 monster packs ambush the squad simultaneously, prompting Alicia Heartland to ask whether the guild investigated the incident thoroughly. The reckless squad did not even check for surviving comrades, reminding Daichi Asakura how harsh this new realm truly is. As the carriage rolls onward, Daichi Asakura apologizes for his awkward questions, but the girls cheerfully brush it aside. Recognizing his unfamiliarity with their culture, Alicia Heartland praises his effort until Karina jokingly tells her not to flatter him too much. Resting the satchel from Klaus Bertram on his lap, Daichi Asakura invites both companions to take a well-deserved break. Pulling pre-packaged sandwiches and bottled drinks from his bag, Daichi Asakura urges the astonished girls to sample delicacies from his homeland. Taking the strange rations, both girls inspect and sniff every angle until Daichi Asakura encourages them to give their unfiltered thoughts. Karina asks if Klaus Bertram gave him the magic bag to conceal his storage skill, which explains why the food remains perfectly fresh. Just as Daichi Asakura peels open the wrapper, an outside shout draws his gaze to Takura Village, sprawling across mountain fields and windmills. Peering out to take in the view, Daichi Asakura blocks Karina from seeing anything, prompting him to suggest they finish lunch quickly. Presenting a clear plastic water bottle, Daichi Asakura notes that such modern packaging is confidential, earning a reassuring nod from Karina. Alicia Heartland loves Daichi Asakura's idea of an hour-long stroll, but Karina insists on finishing lunch before scouting the village layout. Karina plans a trip to the bustling town center instead, insisting Daichi Asakura needs local clothes and shoes more than scenery. Glancing down at his out-of-place modern jacket, Daichi Asakura readily agrees to blend in and asks Alicia Heartland for her approval. Karina appreciates their cooperation, leaving Daichi Asakura flustered by her radiant smile as he asks how long her scouting run will take. Estimating a quick 20-minute scout, Karina departs, leaving Daichi Asakura and Alicia Heartland in the carriage as Nick darts playfully across the seats. Humming a tune by the window, Daichi Asakura watches Nick rest his paws on Alicia Heartland's dress to initiate a game of tag. Watching the pair playfully duel, Daichi Asakura sees Alicia Heartland snap her hand away at blinding speed, dodging Nick's swift paw swipes. Impressed by Nick's agility, Alicia Heartland channels magic to accelerate her reflexes, pushing their high-speed game into overdrive. Catching Nick in her grasp, Alicia Heartland beams with triumph, realizing the cat is also utilizing physical strengthening magic. With a solemn expression, Daichi Asakura asks Alicia Heartland to keep this secret between them, making her blush as she gladly consents. A tense spark lingers between the two until Karina opens the carriage door, prompting Alicia Heartland to ask about her reconnaissance. Daichi Asakura marvels at her quick return, but Karina brings surprising news. The caravan must remain in Takura Village for 2 full days. Inquiring about the unexpected delay, Daichi Asakura learns that the royal monkeys cause severe carriage damage that requires urgent repairs. Proposing they finish lunch first, Karina accepts a sandwich with a bright smile, contrasting sharply with yesterday's blood-soaked clash. Placing sandwiches on the seat, Daichi Asakura explains how to eat the soft bread, as Alicia Heartland and Karina inspect the unusual feast. Taking their first bites, both girls widen their eyes in delight as Karina marvels at the savory fillings layered between sliced bread. Alicia Heartland eagerly agrees, savoring how the toasted bread, seasoned sauce, crisp greens, and tender meat melt harmoniously on her tongue. Pleased by their enthusiasm, Daichi Asakura dishes out extra rations, leaving Karina beaming as she cradles a mountain of fresh sandwiches. Reaching into his storage once more, Daichi Asakura produces fragrant fruit snacks and confections that fill the cabin with sweet aromas. Hearkening to Nick's impatient meows, Daichi Asakura gently reassures his familiar that a special treat awaits him as well. Daichi Asakura serves a bowl of pet food, But Nick playfully bats his hand away, making Alicia Heartland giggle at the cat's protective greed. Across the cabin, Karina sinks her teeth into a sweet fruit and cream sandwich with sheer delight. Overwhelmed by the rich flavor, Karina praises the fluffy texture and sweetness after Daichi Asakura asks for her opinion, explaining that fresh whipped cream is beloved by women back home. Daichi Asakura offers Karina another portion, which she gladly accepts. Offering to share even more cream-based delicacies on their journey, Daichi Asakura receives an enthusiastic, cheerful smile from Karina. Clutching his chest at her charm, Daichi Asakura brushes off Karina's unexpected concern about the cost, assuring her that coin is no object. Blushing furiously, Karina turns her face away and scoffs that he is an absolute fool. A warm smile crosses Daichi Asakura's face as he reflects on his lonely past life when convenience store meals were eaten in solitude. Beaming at his companions, Daichi Asakura retrieves 2 elegant slices of cake from his pack and sets them before the eager girls. Outside among the newly pitched tents, Klaus Bertram asks in disbelief if Daichi Asakura truly shot down leaping royal monkeys, which Karina confirms. When Klaus Bertram presses whether 5 royal monkeys truly fell, Karina insists her eyes never left Daichi Asakura during the combat. Klaus Bertram surrendered the argument, accepting that Karina detected unseen movement through wind magic even if the details felt off. That same intuition spared Daichi Asakura when royal monkeys ambushed the camp, leaving Klaus Bertram rubbing his temples in exhaustion. Raw strength alone could never stop their fangs, and a dagger offered Daichi Asakura little defense against 4 royal monkeys at once. Casting true magic without tools or focal items remained completely unheard of across the entire continent. Having fought beside him, Karina found his entire combat approach utterly baffling. Lacking basic swordplay and physical form, Daichi Asakura still triggered catalyst-free magic that defied explanation. Trading proved equally unfamiliar to him. Though Klaus Bertram admitted his bizarre theories held real practical weight, Karina questioned whether Daichi Asakura was an exiled overseas noble, since foreign lineage explained his eccentric habits. Inquiring about his next request, Karina agreed to keep his foreign origin confidential, given his vital role in the convoy. Rescuing their crew and protecting Bertram Company made Daichi Asakura someone Karina truly respected. Klaus Bertram instructed her to escort him closely once they reached Karam, shielding his secrets from suspicious locals. Accepting the assignment, Karina could not help viewing Daichi Asakura as a genuine savior. Recalling his bright smile as he handed her slices of cake, Karina smiled warmly and rejoined the group. Shortly after, the group walked down the thoroughfare of Takura Village and entered a tailor shop filled with local attire. Trying on an outfit, Daichi Asakura asked for feedback. Karina praised his traveler look, and Nick meowed in agreement. Tugging his collar, Daichi Asakura questioned the fit, but Alicia Heartland and Karina urged him to blend into regional customs. Realizing they wanted him inconspicuous, Daichi Asakura teased that Karina acted much gentler when fed sweets, earning a smack on the back. Stacking the bundle, Daichi Asakura agreed to buy everything and charmed the shopkeeper by calling her his big sister. Leaning on the counter, Daichi Asakura insisted she looked barely older than him, though the flattered merchant mentioned having a teenage daughter. Declaring they could pass as sisters, Daichi Asakura earned bonus goods from the thrilled shopkeeper as Karina checked the tally. Reaching into his briefcase, Daichi Asakura pulled out a solid silver ingot to pay, stunning everyone in the room. Instantly stepping between them, Karina slammed normal coins onto the counter and hauled Daichi Asakura straight out the door. Out on the street, Karina scolded him for causing a commotion, though Daichi Asakura innocently thought raw bullion was standard payment. Slapping her forehead in disbelief, Karina groaned as Daichi Asakura cheerfully pointed toward the next storefront. Snatching him by the collar, Karina declared their immediate priority was reporting to Klaus Bertram. Onlookers watched in amusement as Karina dragged a cheerful Daichi Asakura down the cobblestones by his scruff. Demanding an explanation, Klaus Bertram questioned the incident, to which Daichi Asakura simply replied that he wanted to pay his bill. Outside, Alicia Heartland played with Nick as Klaus Bertram pointed at the desk and asked if he truly planned to spend raw bullion. Unfamiliar with regional currency, Daichi Asakura saw nothing wrong with spending silver bullion, just like merchants did back home. Klaus Bertram found it suspicious that he traveled without coins, unaware Daichi Asakura pulled endless provisions from spatial storage. Karina simmered in silence as Klaus Bertram rubbed his face in defeat, accepting that Daichi Asakura simply simply carried no local coin. Grabbing his briefcase, Daichi Asakura dumped rare trade goods onto the table and asked if Bertram Company wanted to buy, leaving Klaus Bertram overwhelmed. Moments later, Daichi Asakura strolled down the street flipping his new coins, recalling Klaus Bertram's warning to remain discreet in Karam. Common items from his world risked sparking dangerous attention here, so Klaus Bertram strictly forbade displaying otherworld goods anywhere. Catching up to Karina, Daichi Asakura asked if her anger lingered, met by a stiff denial that fooled nobody. Pressing his palms together, Daichi Asakura begged for forgiveness for neglecting to consult her and offered to make amends. Bristling with annoyance, Karina argued that his careless attitude compromised their escort mission, forcing Daichi Asakura to take full blame. Promising greater caution, Daichi Asakura gave his solemn word to stay alert from then on. Closing her eyes, Karina pardoned his ignorance on the condition that he think ahead and consult her before acting, which he accepted. As Alicia Hartland held up Nick, Karina broke into a smile to pet the familiar, teasing that Daichi Asakura owed the cat an apology too. Teased about her temper, Karina leveled her blade at him, prompting Daichi Asakura to quickly hold out a fistful of sweets as a peace offering. Eyeing the confections with clear longing, Karina struggled to keep a stern and indifferent expression. Accused of bribery, Daichi Asakura explained that back home, gentlemen offered fine chocolate to soothe an upset companion. Knowing treats rarely solved every real dispute, Daichi Asakura distributed the sweets, which Karina gladly accepted without further protest. Sampling the rich confections with delight, the girls asked what they were, prompting Daichi Asakura to pull out an entire stash. Devouring the snacks in seconds, the girls granted Daichi Asakura total forgiveness on the strict condition of future caution. Giving his oath, Daichi Asakura entered the marketplace, noticing an influx of Adventurers Guild mercenaries in Takura village that put Karina on edge. Hostile glares tracked their movement through the square, a brewing danger that the entire escort party felt at once. Carrying no visible blade, Daichi Asakura stood out as an easy target tied directly to Bertram Company. An unarmed foreign merchant made prime prey for ruthless cutthroats far more cunning than royal monkeys. With his sights set on the weapons shop, Daichi Asakura receives a firm warning from Karina to stay out of trouble. Spreading his arms in mock innocence, Daichi Asakura insists he is harmless, yet Karina fears his clash with the royal monkeys made him reckless. Flustered, Daichi Asakura points at the drinking adventurers and asks whether they or the royal monkeys are weaker. Both girls frown in disbelief at his blunt comparison, prompting Daichi Asakura to clarify he was only asking out of curiosity. Alicia Hartland admits that in a duel the royal monkeys would win, though adventurers overcome them through team tactics and traps. Waving the topic off, Daichi Asakura leads the group inside the armory, where racks of weapons and strange gear immediately catch his eye. Karina cools his enthusiasm by insisting on defense first, so Daichi Asakura tries on a lightweight vest where Nick can nestle safely inside. When Karina questions his refusal of heavier plate, Alicia Hartland praises his gentle nature, making Daichi Asakura rub his neck in embarrassment. Daichi Asakura heaves a massive shield from the rack. Karina scoffs at the clumsy bulk, but Alicia Hartland marvels at his impressive stamina. To avoid drawing unwanted attention with the massive shield, Daichi Asakura stores it away and inspects the offensive weapon. Longing for an iconic fantasy longsword, Daichi Asakura strides over to the display rack to examine the blades. Karina asks if he can even handle a longsword, but Daichi Asakura smirks, admitting he only needs the blade to intimidate foes on sight. Alicia Hartland compliments his solid grip, leaving Karina speechless at how effectively physical enhancement supports his stance. Channeling mana into the blade, Daichi Asakura reflects on how magical power grants an unmatched advantage over ordinary swordsmanship. Magic can bolster muscles to plow fields effortlessly, or spark instant flames like Karina does, sparing casters from striking flint. Because magic tools serve only skilled casters, a harsh divide widens between the gifted elite and powerless commoners. Beyond selling luxury glass to nobles, Daichi Asakura resolves to distribute cheap practical goods to help those without magic. Noticing his distant look, Karina checks on him, but Daichi Asakura smiles and claims he was just reminiscing about his homeland. Inside a secluded alleyway, Daichi Asakura reveals a piece of troubling intelligence gathered during their shopping trip. Frequent goblin sightings near Takura village prompted the Adventurers Guild to post a cull quest, dispatching 3 parties totaling 13 fighters. Unofficial reports suggest 17 squads totaling 40 mercenaries marched out, an excessive force that Karina finds deeply suspicious. An army of that size makes no sense for routine pests, meaning an ulterior motive drove so many mercenaries to gather. Daichi Asakura asks about their threat level, learning ordinary goblins use crude tools, whereas fearsome goblin generals command raw brute power. Given the massive mobilization for such minor monsters, Daichi Asakura fully shares Karina's suspicions. Observing the cheap gear worn by the departing adventurers, Karina estimates their rank sits at D or E at best. Adventurers Guild rankings begin at H for raw novices and climb all the way to the legendary summit of S rank. Reaching a rank commands prestige equal to the Knight Order, whereas the king personally bestows S rank for monumental achievements. Though S and A ranks represent the absolute elite, standard letter grades measure registered achievements rather than raw lethality. Merit dictates standing, but anyone reaching D rank remains a battle-hardened veteran forged through survival. Learning Karina holds a respectable C rank, Daichi Asakura feels confident he can rely on her combat experience. With solo victories over the Black Tiger and Royal Monkeys under his belt, Daichi Asakura wonders what high rank his arsenal would earn him. Refocusing on the quest, sending 40 mercenaries against an unconfirmed goblin nest strikes them as deeply alarming. Daichi Asakura presses Karina to share her theory, joined by Alicia Hartland, who wants to keep Daichi Asakura from acting recklessly. Alicia Hartland playfully claims Nick wants answers too, cradling the cat in her arms the moment Daichi Asakura hands him over. Turning back to Daichi Asakura, Karina reveals that 2 months ago, bandits massacred an entire settlement 4 days away. That destroyed village had also posted a goblin cull request, only for reinforcements to arrive and find the settlement burned to ash. Dozens of adventuring parties mobilized for that contract, yet every single fighter returned without slaying a single beast. The local lord paid half the bounty in advance, leaving the quest active even after the mercenaries abandoned their guard posts. Failing a lord's request carries no formal penalty, but it shatters an adventurer's reputation and brands them as incompetent. True hunters would widen their perimeter and eliminate every goblin in the surrounding hills, Karina explains. Suspecting a sinister connection, Daichi Asakura asks if the mercenaries and bandits belong to the same syndicate, which Karina grimly confirms. If Takura village is their next target, Daichi Asakura realizes this is a prime opportunity to crush the bandits before they strike. Recalling the Desert Eagle in his spatial storage, Daichi Asakura invites the girls to accompany him for a private test. Seeking an honest assessment of his modern firearm, Daichi Asakura invites Karina to judge its lethality and stealth in action. Pointing out that Karina helped slay 5 royal monkeys, Daichi Asakura asks if she is strong enough to best a goblin general. In a sharp tone, Karina warns that a goblin general is far more dangerous than the royal monkeys they faced before. Although intimidated, Daichi Asakura feels relieved when Alicia Hartland mentions they can escape using physical enhancement. Nick curls up atop Alicia Hartland's head to doze off, drawing a bewildered look from Karina as Daichi Asakura glances back. Karina agrees to the test deep in the woods, insisting modern range power be kept secret until needed to defend the caravan. With terms settled, Daichi Asakura turns and leads the group straight toward the tree line. A rough stranger shoves past, slamming hard into Daichi Asakura's shoulder. Back in Japan, Daichi Asakura might have flinched, but after crushing the royal monkeys alongside Karina, he stands his ground. Pointing out who actually shoved whom only infuriates the drunk, and heavy-set villagers quickly encircle Daichi Asakura. Tavern patrons and wandering adventurers pause their drinks, whispering among themselves as the crowd gathers around Daichi Asakura. Spotting the stunning companions flanking Daichi Asakura, the thugs sneer, demanding both his gold and his girls. Karina steps forward, ice in her voice as she warns the thugs that another step closer will cost them dearly. Turning to his allies, Daichi Asakura dryly asks whether these thugs hit harder than royal monkeys, earning incredulous stares. Mocked for acting tough, Karina clasps her cheeks in mock terror, taunting the ruffians right back. Enraged by her sarcasm, a burly thug steps forward, claiming Karina for himself and daring her to fight the whole mob. Their textbook villain cliches almost make Daichi Asakura laugh, but threatening his companions makes him want to test a new weapon. Karina stops Daichi Asakura before he draws blood, reminding him that killing invites legal trouble, though roughing them up is fair game. game. The instigator snaps and throws a wild kick, furious as Daichi Asakura calmly claims to be nothing more than a traveling merchant. Explaining that murder incurs a hefty fine paid to the Lord, Karina disturbs Daichi Asakura with how easily coin excuses death here. Deciding against lethal force, Daichi Asakura resolves to give these self-proclaimed adventurers an unforgettable lesson in pain. Drawing crude blades with foul curses, the mob charges forward as Karina readies her sword to intercept, confirming he has full clearance to strike. Daichi Asakura stands tall and tells Karina and Alicia Heartland to get ready. Unsheathing a gleaming blade with fluid precision, Daichi Asakura stuns the gathered crowd with his unyielding stance. Daichi Asakura informs the thugs that his immense generosity spares their lives, provided they can endure excruciating agony. Two furious brutes lunge full throttle at Daichi Asakura, determined to make the cocky youth regret his words. Leaving the charging duo to Karina's elite blade work, Daichi Asakura shields Alicia Heartland right behind his back. Tapping into his cheat-tier dimensional storage, Daichi Asakura prepares to summon modern equipment from his otherworldly stockpile. Channeling non-attribute enhancement magic into his muscles, Daichi Asakura prepares to unleash stacked skill synergies. A single effortless sweep from Daichi Asakura sends both men crashing into each other, leaving them scrambling up in shock. Stumbling back up, the thugs freeze in sheer terror as Daichi Asakura readies a lethal strike that could end them in an instant. Dark earthen sludge snatches one thug's boot, making him shriek in panic as he stumbles backward, frantically shaking his leg. Flashing past like lightning, Karina severs the wrist tendons of every single attacker before their blades can fall. Impressed by the surgical strike, Daichi Asakura asks Karina if she truly sliced their tendons, which she confirms with a cool nod. Collapsing to the dirt, the crippled bandits clutch their bleeding wrists, staring at Karina in absolute horror, leveling her blade at their throats. Karina declares this retribution for daring to step near Daichi Asakura. Maddened by the agony, the groveling ruffians beg for mercy, swearing never to cross paths with Karina or Daichi Asakura again. Keeping her steel drawn, Karina orders them to deliver the same warning to all their cohorts, and the men desperately nod. Mocking laughter ripples through the crowd as onlookers marvel at how Karina dismantled an entire gang of thugs unassisted. A cranky meow rings out from Alicia Heartland's arms as Nick stirs, prompting Daichi Asakura to smirk at the lazy familiar. Cradling Nick, Alicia Heartland's expression turns dangerously dark as she stalks toward the bandits for ruining the kitten's nap. Alicia Heartland raises her voice from a quiet murmur to a furious demand, ordering the bewildered thugs to apologize to Nick. Karina gawks in utter disbelief as Alicia Heartland thrusts Nick forward, demanding sympathy for the kitten's ruined sleep, demanding immediate repentance. Alicia Heartland forces the terrified men to their knees with frantic apologies to Nick. Nick chirps in satisfaction, allowing Alicia Heartland to cheerfully announce that the kitten's mercy spared their lives. Karina wipes cold sweat from her brow, relieved because an elemental spirit beast like Nick could easily level the street. Turning back to Daichi Asakura, Karina questions the terrifying technique he used to take a bandit's leg, accusing him of overkill. Daichi Asakura brushes off the complaint, pointing out that Karina disabled an entire gang's tendons in a split second. Crossing a small bridge, Karina notes that standard water magic can close flesh wounds, but cannot restore a severed limb. High-tier regeneration in the capital costs a fortune, Karina adds, reassuring Daichi Asakura that standard water spells still heal common wounds. Counting on Karina and Nick for healing support, Daichi Asakura praises her skill as the defeated ruffians writhe behind them. Karina cautions that humiliated thugs often resort to cowardly retaliation rather than meeting them in fair combat. Realizing their camp could be ambushed, Daichi Asakura drops into a deep Japanese dojeza to thank Karina for the insight. Reaching the forest boundary sign, Karina presses Daichi Asakura on what kind of magic could cleanly sever a man's leg. Urging him to drop the act, Karina listens intently alongside Alicia Heartland as Daichi Asakura admits his technique belongs to him alone. Spreading his arms, Daichi Asakura explains that no such skill exists on this continent, cutting off Alicia Heartland to mention his homeland. Karina halts Daichi Asakura with a raised palm, firmly declaring that only a single person possesses that power, baffling him completely. Rubbing the back of his neck with a sigh, Daichi Asakura smiles at Nick in his hood and explains that this peculiar skill forced him to abandon his homeland. With a grim hand over his face, Daichi Asakura admits that wielding Using such power endangered his family, forcing them apart. Karina and Alicia Heartland bow their heads solemnly, recognizing the heavy sacrifice Daichi Asakura made to keep his loved ones safe. Continuing down the path, Daichi Asakura offers more details to Karina and Alicia Heartland, then smiles softly, promising it will stay their secret. A small bullet manifests across his open palm as Daichi Asakura reveals how he conjures metal and propels it with concentrated fire. Inspecting the tiny piece of lead intently, Karina marvels that something so small could sever limbs with terrifying force. Channeling flame behind the projectile launches it at extreme velocity, Daichi Asakura explains, creating destructive power far beyond severing limbs. Held between his fingertips, the bullet represents devastating destructive potential, leaving Karina shuddering at the dangerous power. Eager for practical combat feedback, Daichi Asakura invites Karina and Alicia Heartland to observe a demonstration and share their tactical advice. Though Karina assumes the display is over, Daichi Asakura insists on testing further to demonstrate a fraction of his true capability. With an enthusiastic grin, Daichi Asakura promises a treat after the trials, instantly convincing Karina that sweets are on the menu. Correcting her assumption, Daichi Asakura mentions savory treats alongside desserts and asks Karina what she would like to eat. Blushing slightly, Karina admits she welcomes any treat, delighting Daichi Asakura as he prepares to gather her combat feedback. A radiant smile reveals Karina's weakness for sugary snacks to Daichi Asakura, leaving Alicia Heartland baffled by her friend's unbridled passion. Entering a secluded sector, Daichi Asakura scans the tree line, wishing for an open field rather than a narrow clearing to test his range. Karina sternly warns him against being picky, noting that unknown monsters lurk nearby and caution must prevent reckless skirmishes. Handing over his familiar, Daichi Asakura asks Alicia Heartland to hold Nick, which she gladly accepts to cuddle the little companion. Nick purrs contentedly under Alicia Heartland's gentle pampering, only to nuzzle her cheek and slip boldly into her collar. Alicia Heartland pulls Nick back with a firm scolding, though Daichi Asakura suspects the two understand each other without a word. Silently applauding Nick's audacious move, Daichi Asakura receives a suspicious glare from Karina, who demands he start the experiment. Readying the desert eagle that severed the bandit's limb, Daichi Asakura relies on his spatial storage to summon firearms from his original world. Drawn from spatial storage, Daichi Asakura's desert eagle obliterates the tree trunk in a shower of splinters, stunning both girls. Turning to the girls for feedback, Daichi Asakura hears Alicia Heartland confess she has never witnessed such offensive magic, so he asks for tactical advice. Snapping out of her daze with an apology, Karina asks Daichi Asakura if that blast truly originated from the tiny piece of lead, fingers brushing against the splintered bark. Karina asks whether such rapid offensive magic can be unleashed repeatedly without immense strain. Karina explains that C or D rank magic can target multiple foes, whereas lower E and F rank spells trade power for continuous firing. Pointed out by Karina for its invisible speed, the shot makes Daichi Asakura realize that standard earth magic fires far too slowly to match it. Wielding magic in this realm proves no different from carrying a concealed firearm, rendering even low-ranked casters lethal to ordinary civilians. Karina tilts her head in confusion at Daichi Asakura's logic, noting that disciplined fighters can counter unranked casters in this world's combat hierarchy. An ordinary person armed with offensive magic still holds the upper hand over unskilled adventurers, prompting Daichi Asakura to ponder his casting methods. Curious about the true definition of a mage, Daichi Asakura learns from Alicia Heartland that the title requires Adventurers Guild registration at rank F or higher. Spellcaster classifications mentioned by Karina operate independently from guild ranks, a vital distinction needed to assess enemy strength accurately. Daichi Asakura proposes discussing these ranking systems over a meal, instantly cheering Karina up with the promise of food. Shifting the mood to serious business, Daichi Asakura instructs them to watch closely so their tactical feedback can prepare him for future combat. A heavier firearm materializes in Daichi Asakura's grip, unleashing a deafening roar upon the tree that forces both girls to cover their ears. Several rounds strike the trunk and a few stray, reminding Daichi Asakura that he needs more marksmanship practice compared to Nick's pinpoint water bullets. Alicia Heartland notes that specialized combat mages with equal destructive power can only engage a single target, a reality Karina firmly supports. Realizing that Nyx water magic outmatches even elite combat mages, Daichi Asakura resolves to guard his pet's prowess as a hidden trump card. Curiosity piqued, Daichi Asakura asks whether standard offensive spells could pierce clean through such a massive trunk without high-tier magic. To Karina, if explosive fire and earth magic struggle against stone, piercing this giant tree is virtually impossible. Consulted by Karina, Alicia Heartland explains that combining 3 earthcasters with 1 spiritual earth specialist and precise aim might succeed. Achieving such penetrating force proves just how rare high-tier magic is in this world compared to basic projectile spells. Teasing Daichi Asakura not to fret, Karina guesses that he was itching to obliterate the tree just to show off more of his arsenal. With a calm smile, Daichi Asakura sets up a table in the clearing, sharing strawberry cakes with his companions for a rare moment of rest. When Daichi Asakura tries to analyze mage rankings, both girls plead for a quiet lunch to recover from their long journey and demonstration. Bringing up his primary goal, Daichi Asakura enthusiastically announces his plan to establish a merchant shop right here in Takura Village. Stunned by the unexpected proposal, both girls gasp in unison, each forming their own immediate reaction to his storefront scheme. Karina worries that strange otherworldly wares will bewilder the villagers, but Alicia Heartland finds the commercial venture fascinating. Balancing their contrasting feedback, Daichi Asakura asks them to review his business plan before he presents it to Klaus Bertram. Seeking the magical expertise of Alicia Heartland in particular, Daichi Asakura ensures both companions fully understand his vision moving forward. Reaching into his pack, Daichi Asakura pulls out water-resistant matches and fire starters, instantly capturing the curious gaze of both girls. Alicia Heartland and Karina inspect the wooden sticks with utter fascination, completely unfamiliar with tools from another world. Striking the match against the box, Daichi Asakura sparks a persistent flame on the wooden tip. Karina suspects sorcery at work, yet Alicia Heartland detects 0 magical energy flowing into the ember. Without requiring a single drop of mana, Daichi Asakura explains, even ordinary people without elemental attributes can produce fire. Dropping the burning match onto a pile of dry leaves, Daichi Asakura lets them watch the tinder instantly catch fire. Alicia Heartland asks if these tools can replace magic items as Daichi Asakura drizzles lighter fluid over the blazing foliage. Daichi Asakura plans to distribute these fire-starting supplies to regular folks who cannot cast spells. Nibbling a strawberry off her cake, Karina questions why Daichi Asakura targets poor commoners instead of chasing high profits. Making daily life easier for ordinary people remains Daichi Asakura's genuine goal. Affordable pricing ensures that even humble villagers can purchase the modern essentials they need. Though Karina looks on in disbelief, Alicia Heartland watches with warmth, both quickly reassuring Daichi Asakura that nothing is wrong. Wealthy nobles already hoard all the rare artifacts, a harsh disparity Karina admits she never stopped to consider. Karina furrows her brow at Daichi Asakura's words, acknowledging that elite privilege kept her blind to common struggles. Foreseeing immense demand, Alicia Heartland warns Daichi Asakura that dealing in consumables creates severe restocking challenges. Inventory shortages never troubled Daichi Asakura, prompting Karina to recall his boundless dimensional storage. Faced with potential risks, Daichi Asakura stays completely calm, leaving Alicia Heartland stunned by his carefree attitude. Smiling toward the horizon, Daichi Asakura plans to present his full business proposal directly to Klaus Bertram. Both girls realize that nothing will change Daichi Asakura's mind as they finish their sweets. Over a second slice of cheesecake, Daichi Asakura asks Karina how many elemental affinities she commands. Raising her dessert fork, Karina reveals that she wields water, fire, and wind. Alicia Heartland folds her hands modestly, quietly confessing that she has mastered every single element. Blown away by Alicia Heartland's omni-elemental mastery, Daichi Asakura listens as Karina explains that this talent is a top secret. To avoid prying into sensitive matters, Daichi Asakura drops the topic to protect his bond with Karina and Alicia Heartland. Karina gently scolds Alicia Heartland for revealing such dangerous secrets, prompting an embarrassed apology. Knowing both girls belong to the Adventurers Guild, Daichi Asakura shifts the conversation toward guild rankings. High rank is something Karina proudly confirms she shares with Alicia Heartland. Rank stands at the top of the hierarchy, with lower tiers following the alphabet downward. Hearing this, Daichi Asakura stares in awe after mistakenly assuming the girls were low-ranking novices. Curious why an elite mage relied on on a sword against the royal monkeys. Daichi Asakura asks Karina for an explanation. When Daichi Asakura asks about her spells against the royal monkeys, Karina explains her rank B chantless wind magic. High-tier wind spells require time to prepare, forcing Karina to focus entirely on raw swordplay during the ambush. Turning the critique around, Karina lectures Daichi Asakura for draining all his mana with reckless wind spells. To apologize, Daichi Asakura serves her a rich cup of ice cream with the texture of whipped cream. Spoon in hand, Karina melts in pure bliss at the sweet, velvety flavor. When Daichi Asakura asks if Alicia Heartland is also rank B, she admits that terror against the royal monkeys froze her in place. Asked by Daichi Asakura about magic gear, Alicia Heartland reveals that her rare enchantment skill carried them through that battle. Alicia Heartland explains to Daichi Asakura that enchantment channels magical energy into physical items to enhance their abilities. Imbuing an object with fire grants it burning properties, though mastering the technique demands immense skill. Through this method, Alicia Heartland notes, even people without magical attributes can utilize enchanted tools. Daichi Asakura assumes 4 enchanted items equal 1 true artifact, but Karina warns him it is never that simple. High-grade ignition tools grant precise control over flame size. Alicia Heartland notes, but their crafting costs are astronomical. Unstable enchantments carry extreme danger, turning a simple stove lighter into deadly fire bullets if miscast. Karina confirms to Daichi Asakura that Alicia Heartland was born with this exceedingly rare enchantment talent. Abandoning the idea of forging gear, Daichi Asakura realizes a bulky enemy detection station would be impossible to carry. Saving Nick from unnecessary strain remains crucial, keeping his familiar's water magic reserved as a secret trump card. Wondering if Nick could combine forces with wind detection, Daichi Asakura asks Karina to demonstrate her sensory magic. Karina hesitates, explaining that an invisible sensory technique cannot easily be put on display without real targets. Persistently coaxing her with friendly charm, Daichi Asakura convinces Karina to give him a live demonstration. Setting down her empty plate, Karina closes her eyes and projects a glowing radar circle to sweep the area. Nick jerks upright in alarm as fear grips his eyes, alerting Daichi Asakura just as Karina detects a grim presence with her wind skill. Crouching low with closed eyes, Karina urgently signals Daichi Asakura to halt after sensing a hostile figure stalking close by. A wild beast comes to mind, but Karina shakes her head and warns Daichi Asakura that the large moving shadow is likely human. Deep forest terrain makes a lone traveler suspicious, sparking dread in Daichi Asakura as the lethal threat of bandits dawns on him. Through the dense brush, Karina struggles to pinpoint the exact number of enemies lurking ahead. Speaking up with absolute confidence, Alicia Heartland announces that exactly 8 bandits are closing in. Karina nods in gratitude, though Alicia Heartland modestly calls it an estimate, sparing Nick and Daichi Asakura from exposing their secret power. Flashing a warm smile, Karina agrees, leaving Daichi Asakura impressed by sensory detection that easily outclasses crude wind magic. Such lethal precision proves to Daichi Asakura why Karina goes to great lengths to keep the true power of Alicia Heartland hidden. Both Klaus Bertram and Captain Jeffrey clearly guard the secrets of Alicia Heartland as well, but Daichi Asakura brushes aside the mystery to face the danger. Recalling their previous skirmish, Daichi Asakura wonders if this larger bandit force might actually be an organized adventurer party. Gripping her hilt, Karina prepares for battle, knowing coincidences in these woods always spell disaster. Slipping on her combat gloves, Karina sternly warns the party to maintain distance until they confirm the identity of the hostiles. Vanishing without a trace, Daichi Asakura and the group pack their campsite within seconds and move through the ominous shadows of giant trees. Behind his cautious demeanor, Daichi Asakura commands an extraordinary item exchange skill capable of summoning any modern tool on demand. With 8 hostiles confirmed, Daichi Asakura prepares to fight beside Karina to protect Alicia Heartland, asking if they should take cover. Karina orders Daichi Asakura to stay low and silent, wary of unknown spells, just as Nick catches the scent of a lethal warrior. Poking his head out of the sweatshirt of Daichi Asakura, Nick glares forward, his anxious reaction confirming the presence of ruthless outlaws, refusing to show mercy to the monsters who pillage the settlement. Daichi Asakura readies his entire dimensional arsenal to punish them. Turning back with grim urgency, Karina warns Daichi Asakura that the crisis just escalated as more hostiles enter the area. A grim frown crosses crosses the face of Karina as she counts 20 foes, forcing Daichi Asakura to rethink his tactical options against such numbers. Locating the nearby bandit lair would allow Daichi Asakura to wipe out the threat and safeguard Takura village once and for all. Cutting off a suggestion from Alicia Heartland, Karina insists on retreating immediately to brief Klaus Bertram and Captain Jeffrey. Safely back at camp, Klaus Bertram warmly welcomes the party and summons Captain Jeffrey to hear the unexpected proposal of Daichi Asakura. Stepping away from his desk, Klaus Bertram graciously offers cups of hot tea to his returning guests. Politely waving off the refreshment, Daichi Asakura asks Klaus Bertram to begin their private negotiation before Captain Jeffrey arrives. Smiling pleasantly, Klaus Bertram sets down the kettle and invites Daichi Asakura to lay out his plans without hesitation. When Daichi Asakura announces his intent to open a shop in Takura village, the thundering shout of Klaus Bertram rattles the entire tent. Setting a pack of waterproof matches on the table, Daichi Asakura meets the astonished gaze of Klaus Bertram. Striking a match, Daichi Asakura ignites a clean flame, explaining to an amazed Klaus Bertram that it requires zero magic to function. Holding the strange burning stick in his hand, Klaus Bertram asks Daichi Asakura if the flame lasts for only a single brief use. Daichi Asakura confirms the single use, highlighting the massive demand among common folk who possess no magic whatsoever. Tensing at the idea of selling modern convenience to ordinary civilians, Klaus Bertram asks what price Daichi Asakura plans to charge. Setting the price at 2 silver coins per pack, Daichi Asakura doubles his investment cost to turn a solid merchant profit. Nodding in approval, Klaus Bertram asks about standard flint strikers, which Daichi Asakura offers at 60 pieces per silver coin. Slamming a heavy palm onto the table in shock, Klaus Bertram demands to know why flint strikers cost so much less than matches. Highlighting the instant waterproof ignition of matches, Daichi Asakura watches Klaus Bertram retrieve iron fire strikers for Karina. Handing over a rough flint stone and a steel bar, Klaus Bertram instructs Karina to start a fire manually. Striking the metal against the stone, Karina showers sparks over a scrap of paper until smoke fills the room. Witnessing the clumsy effort, Daichi Asakura realizes that non-magical villagers will gladly purchase affordable flint strikers in bulk. Drawing on merchant instincts, Klaus Bertram urges Daichi Asakura to raise the price on non-magical flint strikers for higher profit. A vivid memory of the smiling, magicless campmaid flashes in the mind of Daichi Asakura, steeling his resolve to keep prices fair. Standing firm on his decision, Daichi Asakura refuses to hike the price so that ordinary folk can easily afford basic fire tools. A tense silence follows, reminding Daichi Asakura of the shrewd commercial mastery Klaus Bertram wields over Bertram Company. Anxious yet resolute, Daichi Asakura waits for Klaus Bertram to grant official caravan approval for his unorthodox trade. Stroking his chin with a grin, Klaus Bertram yields to the stubborn determination of Daichi Asakura and gives his full blessing. Unveiling an intricate rose ornament and a sleek modern lighter, Daichi Asakura presents premium luxury goods intended for high nobility. Klaus Bertram marvels at the lavish catalog just as the booming voice of Captain Jeffrey rings out at the tent entrance. Promising a complete demonstration later, Daichi Asakura finalizes the merchant agreement with Klaus Bertram to officially launch his shop. As Captain Jeffrey steps inside and seals the exit, Klaus Bertram demands a full report on everything that occurred in the forest. Klaus Bertram wears a grave expression as Daichi Asakura, Alicia Heartland, and Karina weigh how to answer his question. Marauders have pillaged the nearby settlement into ruins, leaving a suspicious detachment lurking deep within the forest. Watching the tree line, Klaus Bertram steps forward with a tactical proposal, prompting Captain Jeffrey to clarify the plan. Captain Jeffrey warns that although the scouts could be hunters, bandit presence on the forest roads has spiked drastically. High odds point to enemy raiders, urging the guards to strike first before the ambush springs. Fully backing the offensive, Captain Jeffrey advises dividing their forces to sweep the woods and clear every threat. Daichi Asakura silently calculates whether the Bertram Company guards have enough firepower to rout the bandit gang. Klaus Bertram hesitates to scatter his forces, but Captain Jeffrey insists that Karina spearhead the reconnaissance team. Accepting the advice, Klaus Bertram nods just as Daichi Asakura and Alicia Heartland raise their hands to join the squad. Refusing outright, Klaus Bertram explains that risking honored guests like Daichi Asakura and Alicia Heartland would would ruin his name. Intervening on their behalf, Karina assures Klaus Bertram that bringing Daichi Asakura and Alicia Heartland adds crucial strength. Karina reminds Klaus Bertram how brilliantly Daichi Asakura defeated the royal monkeys, keeping his secret skills confidential. Beyond bizarre weaponry, Karina notes that Daichi Asakura wields devastating non-attribute magic with lethal destructive force. Reassuring Klaus Bertram about Alicia Heartland's combat mastery, Karina guarantees both guests can easily survive a skirmish. With top-tier firepower and unmatched agility, Daichi Asakura can outmaneuver any threat, Karina insists. Raising her hand eagerly, Alicia Heartland volunteers long-range spell support until Klaus Bertram and Karina urge her to calm down. Fearing Klaus Bertram views her as dead weight, Alicia Heartland relents once Karina promises the vanguards will shield her. Seeing Alicia Heartland lower her hands gloomily, Daichi Asakura deduces from the guard's reverence that she comes from high nobility. Relenting with a nod, Klaus Bertram approves the mission under strict orders to evade unnecessary combat and return safely. Ordering Captain Jeffrey on standby, Klaus Bertram appoints Karina to lead the squad and sets out to select reliable escorts. As burnt signal ashes drift upward, the 5-member scouting party leaves the camp under Karina's command. Leading Daichi Asakura and Alicia Heartland alongside 2 guards, Karina decides to claim Nick casts the non-attribute magic. Confident in her sharp judgment, Daichi Asakura respects Karina's quick thinking in protecting his identity. Karina smiles gratefully, reminding Daichi Asakura that common mercenaries must not learn the true scale of his spells. Tapping her chin with an amused smirk, Karina teases Daichi Asakura, prompting him to stay on guard around her. Closing her eyes in thought, Karina suggests inventing a plausible cover story for Daichi Asakura's unusual arsenal. Certain his modern gear already has decent cover, Daichi Asakura promises to devise extra explanations on the march. Brainstorming combat disguises on the road, Karina suggests that wielding a katana could hide his modern firepower. Halting the pace, Karina calls over Dennis and Frida to brief them on their new scouting duties. Stepping up with respectful curiosity, Dennis and Frida ask Karina what urgent mission requires their blades. Flanking the party, ponytail-bound Frida stands ready alongside Dennis and his distinct, rugged grin. Sensing 20 suspicious hostiles in the timberland, Karina orders Dennis and Frida to assist in verifying the ambush. Rubbing his stubbled chin, Dennis grumbles that hunting 20 armed bandits sounds far too risky for regular guard wages. Frida giggles at her partner's penny-pinching habits after Dennis argues that profit must always outweigh danger. Entertained by Dennis and Frida bantering back and forth, Daichi Asakura recognizes the sharp instincts of veteran mercenaries. Keeping the unit moving, Karina introduces Daichi Asakura and Alicia Heartland to Dennis and Frida as they press into the woods. Assigning formations, Karina takes the vanguard with Daichi Asakura, placing Alicia Heartland in the middle and Dennis and Frida at the rear. Calling from behind, Dennis voices astonishment that a supposed traveling merchant like Daichi Asakura possesses genuine combat prowess. Grinning modestly, Daichi Asakura admits to Dennis that clashing with the royal monkeys last night was only his second battle ever. Dennis belts out an appreciative shout, clapping Daichi Asakura on the shoulder for surviving against ferocious royal monkeys on his second fight. Preferring casual speech over stiff honorifics, Daichi Asakura tells Dennis to drop the formalities and call him by name. Draping an arm over Daichi Asakura's shoulder, Dennis inquires whether the gossip about him launching a merchant shop in the city is true. Confirming the plan, Daichi Asakura explains to Dennis that opening a shop is his goal, though his long-term residence remains unsettled. Dennis commends Karam as prime commercial ground, boasting a bustling population between the capital and the harbor. Pleased by the market insight, Daichi Asakura thanks Dennis, who enthusiastically volunteers to guide him straight into Karam. Harboring his own agenda, Dennis hopes Daichi Asakura will sell exotic foreign merchandise upon securing Takura village. Chuckling at the mercenary scheme, Daichi Asakura clarifies that he intends to set up a modest kiosk once the scouting wraps up. Curious about the imported inventory, Dennis presses Daichi Asakura to reveal what bizarre wares he intends to sell. When Daichi Asakura mentions instant fire starters, Dennis expects crude flint and steel until proven wrong. Striking a waterproof match, Daichi Asakura produces an instant flame, leaving Dennis stunned that fire could ignite without magic. Frida marvels at the clever trick. Snapping back to focus, Karina orders the squad into formation as they close in on the spot where she sensed 8 presences. begins. Nearing the tree line, Karina shakes her head when asked for updates, finding nothing new. The perimeter feels empty, but no one dares lower their guard. Dennis flops onto his back with one leg kicked high to lighten the mood. Relax, Karina, he smirks, claiming he is always battle-ready. Unimpressed by the goofy stunt, the squad stares back in silence. Sprawled out on the dirt, Dennis inspires zero confidence. Daichi Asakura steps forward just as Nick pops out of his hoodie. Digging sharp claws into fabric, the cat locks his gaze onto a fresh scent, calculating the wind trace Nick picked up. Daichi Asakura estimates the targets are 3 hours out and plans how to tip off the group. A clear voice cuts in behind Daichi Asakura as Alicia Hartland points straight ahead, reporting 3 figures 5 kilometers out. Relief washes over Daichi Asakura, grateful her sharp detection spared him from cooking up an excuse. Reaching into his jacket, Daichi Asakura produces modern binoculars. Dennis blinks at the twin glass lenses, demanding to know what kind of contraption scans the horizon. Dennis takes the binoculars and slaps them to his face, letting out a yelp as distant trees snap right in front of his nose. Leaning close, Daichi Asakura whispers to Karina about a metallic glint caught in the brush. Beside them, Dennis remains mesmerized by the glass. Concealing Nick's keen scent trace, Daichi Asakura claims he just spotted a reflection by sheer luck. Karina closes her eyes, framing her next command. Unidentified group, under 2 kilometers out, Karina announces, ordering the team to widen their search perimeter immediately. Peering over, Dennis praises Karina for her sharp battlefield caution. Frida nods in proud agreement beside him. Karina turns to Alicia Hartland, placing full trust in her tracking. Determined and focused, the young mage prepares to lead the way. Buffing her stats with physical strengthening, Karina calls for battle readiness. Frida and Dennis raise shields, urging Daichi Asakura to ready his defense. From his storage, Daichi Asakura produces a massive ballistic shield capable of covering his entire frame, leaving the squad stunned. Karina criticizes the bulky gear as impractical, but Alicia Hartland loves it, marveling at how safe an assault feels behind such armor. Crouching in the dirt, Alicia Hartland sketches a map with a twig, pinpointing a hidden cave 2 kilometers ahead. Inside that cavern lurks an armed faction made up of humans mixed with beastmen. Dread tightens Alicia Hartland's voice as she counts at least 50 signatures, possibly topping 60. Mixed tension ripples through the team as Alicia Hartland admits the deep cavern walls block any further scan. Dennis frowns, suspecting a shady underground syndicate running illicit operations from the shadows. Frida urges caution against wild guesses despite the suspicious numbers, and Karina gestures for Alicia Hartland to fall back. When Daichi Asakura wonders if such caution is excessive, Frida and Dennis trade stunned glances and throw their heads back. Palming his face, Dennis reminds him about beastmen. Frida chimes in that beastmen possess razor-sharp noses that could catch their scent anytime. Dennis insists retreating with solid scout intel is a victory in itself, since returning empty-handed is the real failure. Frida agrees, pointing out that pinpointing enemy numbers and their hideout is already a massive accomplishment. Breaking into boisterous laughter, Frida and Dennis boast about the fat payout awaiting them for this reconnaissance. Scratching his cheek, Daichi Asakura nods in understanding at their mercenary mindset. Clapping a hand on Daichi Asakura's shoulder, Dennis asks what matters most in survival, then winks and declares it is honesty. Remembering his own tall tales about visiting foreign relatives, Daichi Asakura offers a crooked smile and thanks him for the wisdom. Karina calls for immediate withdrawal, prompting Frida to blow Daichi Asakura a flirtatious kiss for his honesty. Flustered by Dennis teasing him, Daichi Asakura quietly plants a surveillance sensor on a massive tree trunk before departing. Arriving back at the staging grounds, Daichi Asakura stares in disbelief at the empty field where a bustling camp stood hours ago. Karina explains that the caravan relocated into Takura village, securing their supplies inside the settlement walls. Local villagers watch them suspiciously, leaving Daichi Asakura to wonder where the bandits went and what happens if they strike. Their escort contract excludes hunting down outlaws, Karina clarifies, keeping their priority on defending the cargo. Dennis adds that the combined guard forces pack enough raw firepower to crush any raid. With a messenger dispatched to the Night Order, their duty is simply holding the perimeter until the Night Order arrives. The defensive plan clicks for Daichi Asakura, though Dennis grimly points out the sheer enemy numbers vastly exceed expectations. Frida doubts the villagers will believe their warnings, prompting Karina to head toward the command tent to deliver their report first. Surveying the narrow streets, Daichi Asakura Asakura notes the cramped layout, and Karina admits they had no better tactical alternative. Securing local militia support remains vital. And when Dennis asks about the elders' stance, Karina insists they must rally every fighter. Frida mentions the settlement maintains its own armed militia, which Karina agrees could bolster their defensive line significantly. Dennis shrugs, confident the locals will fight once they learn their homes are in the crosshairs. Turning to Dennis and Frida, Karina grants them leave to rest until dusk before resuming standard patrol duties. Frida asks what the captain plans next, and Karina offers to give Daichi Asakura and Alicia Heartland a tour of the main street. Karina freezes in shock as Frida and Dennis tease her loudly for addressing Daichi Asakura casually by his given name. Waving her hands in frantic denial, Karina insists Daichi Asakura simply asked to skip stiff titles. Dennis points out that Karina never spoke to Daichi Asakura with such hesitation before, and Frida teases that their captain might just be nervous about the job. Flushing bright red, Karina snaps at Dennis to drop the jokes after he suspects she is hiding a secret. Dennis turns back to Daichi Asakura, demanding his honest opinion on her strange mood. Daichi Asakura admits that Karina acted slightly unusual earlier, wondering if she truly felt anxious. Deep down, Daichi Asakura curses how a single awkward reaction from Karina handed both guards endless ammunition. Frida smothers Karina in a tight hug, offering big sister romantic advice that gets flatly rejected. An exasperated Karina shoves Frida back as Dennis tries to jump in, demanding an immediate end to the nonsense. With a mischievous wink toward Daichi Asakura, Frida asks if he finds Karina charming. Blushing slightly, Daichi Asakura blurts out that Karina looks especially lovely when flustered, instantly regretting his loose tongue. Stunned by the compliment, Karina freezes in disbelief, and behind her, Frida and Dennis clasp hands in dramatic delight. To break the tension, Daichi Asakura takes Karina by the hand and bids farewell to Frida and Dennis before pulling her toward their stall. Frida and Dennis beam and wish Karina good luck, leaving her fuming over why a routine shop setup with Daichi Asakura sounds like a date. Leaving Frida and Dennis behind, Karina and Daichi Asakura reach the village square with 2 hours left to test how locals react to their wares. A glance down the quiet streets convinces Karina that no crowd will gather today as she avoids Daichi Asakura's gaze. Alicia Heartland immediately spots Karina's lingering blush and asks if she missed any excitement, but Karina insists nothing happened. With an unblinking stare and a hand on Karina's shoulder, Alicia Heartland presses for the truth until Karina brushes it off. To deflect the questioning from Alicia Heartland, Karina urges the group to set up the stall without delay before their 2 hours run out. Daichi Asakura waves to catch the attention of Karina and Alicia Heartland, motioning them over to observe his first move. At a nearby stall, Daichi Asakura offers a polite greeting to an elderly vendor before she asks if he is looking to buy. A polite request follows as Daichi Asakura asks for a moment of her time to showcase a special product. Neat stacks of small and medium boxes land on the counter as Daichi Asakura draws curious glances from the neighboring vendor. The elder openly praises the flawless craftsmanship of the containers, admitting her envy toward Daichi Asakura. Chuckling at her own quirk, the woman jokes about envying fine boxes in her old age, and the young girl beside her smiles in sweet agreement. Curious about local habits, Daichi Asakura asks how they light fires, and both women explain that they strike sparks with flint. Cupping her cheeks with a heavy sigh, the girl laments that non-mages have no choice, since enchanted fire starters cost a fortune. With a knowing smile, Daichi Asakura offers them an affordable tool that creates instant fire without a speck of magic. To counter her disbelief, Daichi Asakura pulls a match from the box and asks the elder to hold out an open palm. Guiding her fingers against the striker strip, Daichi Asakura sparks a bright flame, leaving both women frozen in sheer shock. Bystanders gather at once, exchanging bewildered looks over how an ordinary wooden stick summoned fire without any enchantment. Karina and Alicia Heartland beam as curiosity spreads, and Daichi Asakura knows this marks the first major breakthrough of his venture. Raising his hands to soothe the surging crowd, Daichi Asakura assures everyone that his stock of matches will cover every customer. Daichi Asakura calls for a proper line to stop the shoving as villagers press against the counter to secure the magicless fire starter. Striking a match of her own, a customer gasps in wonder at creating a flame with her own hands without spending mana. An iron brazier loaded with logs takes center stage as Daichi Asakura introduces fire starter blocks designed to kindle heavy heavy wood instantly. To clear her confusion, Daichi Asakura drops a lit match onto the treated wood, and roaring flames engulf every log within seconds. A chorus of gasps ripples through the crowd as onlookers marvel at how rapidly the kindling catches without bellows or spells. Addressing the crowd, Daichi Asakura highlights how even the smallest ember on a starter block can ignite the toughest timber. Murmurs of disappointment surface when Daichi Asakura openly mentions the single drawback: each match and fuel block is single use. With a calm grin, Daichi Asakura sets the price of a 25 match pack at just 2 silver coins. A single silver coin buys 60 fire starter blocks, stunning the villagers just as Klaus Bertram predicted to Daichi Asakura. Projecting his voice over the square, Daichi Asakura invites the crowd to take advantage of the bargain. A gloved hand shoots up from the throng as a young woman steps forward, eagerly demanding to purchase both items. Accepting 3 silver coins, Daichi Asakura thanks his first customer warmly and welcomes her back anytime. Before she leaves, Daichi Asakura invites her to linger for a moment, sparking her curiosity about whether he has more goods. Daichi Asakura promises it is not another sale, but a free bonus for everyone that she is sure to enjoy. Reaching into his pack, Daichi Asakura asks the crowd for their attention to present the surprise treat. A heavy iron grill grate goes over the brazier as Daichi Asakura leaves the onlookers puzzled by his culinary setup. Skewers of seasoned meat sizzle as Daichi Asakura turns them over the coals, filling the air with a mouth-watering aroma. In response to hungry inquiries from the crowd, Daichi Asakura reveals he is preparing yakitori, glazed chicken skewers grilled over charcoal. Though familiar with ordinary poultry, the villagers find themselves completely captivated by the rich fragrance drifting from the grill. Knowing the town's laborers eat only twice a day, Daichi Asakura is certain the savory aroma will tempt even the emptiest pockets. Pulling a freshly grilled skewer from the heat, Daichi Asakura offers the first hot bite to the hesitant young customer. With a warm gesture, Daichi Asakura confirms this treat is the promised bonus, leaving the girl stunned by his generosity. Onlookers watch in breathless silence as the girl takes a bite, her eyes going wide at the explosion of rich flavors. Relieved by the crowd's reaction, Daichi Asakura smiles as she devours the skewer and eagerly asks if his secret glaze is for sale. Mouths water throughout the gathering crowd, anticipation crackling in the air as everyone yearns for a taste. Villagers surge toward the makeshift stall, demanding single items just to earn their own portion of the sizzling dish. Raising his voice above the clamor, Daichi Asakura assures the buyers that purchasing even a single item guarantees a hot sample. A wild rush floods the wooden counter as eager patrons double their orders to secure multiple servings. Overwhelmed by the crushing rush, Daichi Asakura urges patience before carrying fresh skewers over to his neighboring stallholders. Bowing with respectful courtesy, Daichi Asakura thanks the nearby merchants for their patience and apologizes for the loud commotion. The woman graciously brushes off his apologies, delighted when Daichi Asakura presents her with an extra-large plate of hot skewers. Exchanging warm smiles with the grateful neighbors, Daichi Asakura waves them off and returns briskly to manage the bustling stall. Exhaustion sets in as Daichi Asakura rushes through non-stop orders, backed by Karina and Alicia Hartland happily snacking on skewers. After bidding farewell to the departing neighbors, Daichi Asakura calls out that inventory is dwindling and sales will close shortly. Heavy footsteps announce a squad of rough thugs, sneering greedily as Daichi Asakura packs away the remaining merchandise. Sensing clear intimidation behind their smirks, Daichi Asakura stands firm as the lead thug insolently demands free chicken. Offering a calm smile, Daichi Asakura explains that overwhelming demand cleared every last skewer from his inventory. Fury erupts from the bandits, one of them shouting that he clearly saw Daichi Asakura slip cooked meat into his pack. Daichi Asakura bows politely and reminds them the stall is closed, inviting the agitators to return during normal hours tomorrow. Deeming his polite refusal an intolerable insult, the ruffians decide it is time to teach Daichi Asakura a brutal lesson in commerce. Two brute enforcers lunge forward, only for a gleaming blade to flash across their faces as Karina shields Daichi Asakura. Pointing an aggressive finger, the brute warns her to step aside before an eye patch-wearing veteran recognizes her high-tier rank. Dual rank rings on Karina's finger stop the thugs in their tracks as Daichi Asakura watches their abrupt hesitation. Declaring herself Daichi Asakura's hired bodyguard, Karina locks onto them with an icy glare that makes every muscle in their bodies tense. Scowling under pressure, the bandit sneers and asks Karina if a lone girl truly expects to take down 4 seasoned fighters. A chilling smirk crosses Karina's lips as she warns the thugs that underestimating her blade will cost them dearly. Backing away from the confrontation, the ruffians size up Daichi, Asakura, and Karina one last time before preparing to retreat. A mocking voice calls from above as Alan, a scarred rogue perched on a ledge, interrupts to ask his comrades what is delaying them. Offering to solve the dispute himself, Alan flashes a sinister grin that earns immediate praise from his relieved flunky. Turning his scorn directly on Karina, the scarred leader mocks her companion and asks how long she plans to protect a pathetic merchant. Karina glances back at Daichi Asakura, waiting patiently as he awkwardly reiterates to the gang that every single item has been sold. Outraged by the dismissive response, the thugs lose all composure and demand blood to put Daichi Asakura firmly in his place. Feigning innocence behind his hand, Daichi Asakura casually remarks that he took them for fools, driving their fury past the breaking point. Unanimous bloodlust grips the gang, resolved to slaughter Daichi Asakura on the spot. Hostile outlaws, led by the scarred Alan, encircle the street, glaring down at Daichi Asakura and flower-adorned Karina. Unbothered by the hostility, Alicia Hartland cradles Daichi Asakura's familiar Nick, playfully waving the magical cat's paws. Raising a hand with closed eyes, Alan breaks the silence by taunting the defenders for their uneasy quiet. Stepping forward, the blonde thug urges Alan to punish the pair for their insolence, drawing sharp grimaces from Karina and Daichi Asakura. Alan scoffs at his lackey, openly questioning why he hesitates unless he is terrified of fighting Karina and Daichi Asakura. Uproarious laughter erupts across Alan's gang as the bandits mock their comrade's hesitation. Flustered, the blonde thug points at Karina, shouting that caution is warranted against a B-rank magician as she calmly inspects her nails. Instant silence falls over Alan and his crew, their mocking laughter freezing into absolute shock at the revelation. A wicked grin spreads across Alan's face as he admits he failed to recognize such high-caliber opponents. Drawing his steel, Alan strides toward Karina and Daichi Asakura, boasting that his crew commands lethal spellcasters of their own. Steel rasps from scabbards as Alan and his cutthroats advance, sneering threats of the bloodshed to come. Dropping into stance, Karina warns Daichi Asakura to stay alert as 2 swordsmen charge the front and a rear mage moves into position. Raw physical enhancement poses little danger, but Daichi Asakura knows enemy spellcraft could nullify even his modern firearms. With steel drawn, Karina asks Daichi Asakura if he can handle one of the oncoming assailants himself. Meeting her gaze, Daichi Asakura relishes her first request for aid, determined to protect Karina and crush the bandit threat. Stepping forward, Daichi Asakura clasps his wrists together as crackling waves of raw energy gather in the palm of his hand. "I can take both of them," Daichi Asakura calls out, but Karina snaps back that dropping the front attacker is more than enough. Alan snarls at their chatter as his swordsmen charge in, only for a blinding flash of light to swallow the battlefield. When the glare fades, the bandits collapse into the dirt, clutching their bleeding wounds in agony. With their heads bowed in total surrender, the blonde ringleader and his men drop to their knees before Karina and a startled Daichi Asakura. Karina narrows her gaze, fixing her eyes directly on the blonde instigator who started the brawl. Forcing a foolish grin, the blonde man claims he forgot his point and looks to his shaking thugs, who frantically wave their hands in silence. Moving ahead of Karina, Daichi Asakura crouches before the captive to extract the intel they need. Terrified of another blast, the blonde bandit stammers that he will answer anything Daichi Asakura wants to know. Daichi Asakura calmly asks if they accepted an official quest to hunt goblins, and the captive nods without hesitation. Pointing across at his comrades, the man insists they are registered local adventurers whose parties took the mission legitimately. The blonde captive adds that Alan's band of mages had no such permit, glancing back at Alan, who is panting heavily on the ground. Resting his chin on his hand, Daichi Asakura presses for their kill count, but the thug dodges, giving an exact number. A sharp, menacing glare enters Daichi Asakura's eyes as he demands the precise tally of slain monsters. Shaking in panic, both gang leaders confess that their squads eliminated 0 goblins, leaving Daichi Asakura in deep thought. Desperate to deflect blame, one leader points at the wounded crew, claiming those 4 fighters took down 11 goblins by themselves. Kneeling with sliced hands, one of the accused men turns pale pale with terror the moment attention shifts to him. Leaning close to the defeated fighter, Daichi Asakura questions him directly about the 11 kills, receiving a stiff nod in confirmation. Narrowing his eyes, Daichi Asakura orders the man to explain his squad's roles, but the captive looks down in silence. Reaching toward the silent casualty, Daichi Asakura pivots around and demands their identities from the other prisoners instead. Daichi Asakura singles out a mustachioed man with an eye patch before Karina steps in and commands the rogue to speak up. Fumbling his words, the eye patch-wearing captive reveals that the wounded squad consists of 4 members in total. Pointing to a blonde fighter with shoulder-length hair, he identifies him as a water mage who casts healing magic. Next, he indicates 2 wounded frontliners clutching their injuries, explaining they rely purely on physical combat without spells. Finally, he gestures toward Alan, their offensive battle mage, who sits facing away in sullen silence. Observing their balanced lineup, Daichi Asakura recognizes how they could down 11 goblins, yet a persistent doubt nags at him. Rising to his feet, Daichi Asakura raises a hand and asks the entire crowd if every party present took the goblin quest for Torreno. Raising his hand, the mustachioed bandit confirms that both his squad and the defeated mage party accepted that exact request. Daichi Asakura asks how they held off monster attacks, but the man confesses they saw 0 goblins during their 10 days in the village. The eye patch bandit explains that the goblin raids only started 3 days after the 4 mages showed up in town. "You got lucky escaping before the raid hit," Daichi Asakura notes, warning that staying behind would have cost them their lives. Nodding in agreement, the captive falls silent as Daichi Asakura turns his focus toward the subdued water mage. Confronting the captured mages, Daichi Asakura presses them to explain how they took down the monsters and how many they truly faced. The water mage claims that immediately upon reaching the village, their group marched straight into the woods to hunt down beasts. Hearing that goblins had been absent for a decade, they ventured deep into the thick forest thicket, suspecting the creatures were hiding. When Daichi Asakura asks if they located the monster nest, the water mage closes his eyes and silently shakes his head. Exchanging a meaningful side glance with Karina, Daichi Asakura rests his chin on his hand as she turns away with a sharp breath. Calling for quiet, Daichi Asakura asks the rogues what should be done with them, as Karina stands nearby staring at the dirt. With the confiscated weapons piled up, they weigh whether to turn the squads over to local authorities or release them on probation. Hearing talk of release, the captives erupt into cheers, grating on Karina's nerves and surprising Daichi Asakura. Turning from the noise, Karina insists on briefing Klaus Bertram and Captain Jeffrey as Alicia Hartland cradles Nick beside Daichi Asakura. A lingering suspicion keeps Daichi Asakura's eyes locked on the water mage, who sits with his head bowed to the dirt. The mage's story about hunting deep in the woods holds up tactically, yet something about his demeanor feels completely off. Walking away, Daichi Asakura cannot shake the nagging inconsistencies gnawing at his gut. Glancing over his shoulder, Daichi Asakura catches the water mage glaring up at him with cold, calculating eyes. Flanked by torches and tents, Karina follows the elder through camp, recounting that 2 adventurer squads hunted goblins before Torreno fell. Bringing fresh intel to the elder, Karina listens as he turns around and asks for her true impression of the scene. Entering the tent behind him, Karina warns that the 4 mages carry a sinister aura and cannot be trusted. Pulling out a wooden chair, the elder asks Karina what she thinks of the suspicious coordination between the bandit groups. Karina firmly advises utmost vigilance across the camp as the elder takes his seat to plan their next move. Under a dim lamp, the elder scratches his beard, questioning whether Daichi Asakura uncovered the conspiracy all by himself as Karina stands before him. Karina recalls his bright greeting, linking the food stall Daichi Asakura organized directly to the recent catastrophe in Torreno. With his chin resting on folded hands, the elder plans to dispatch tavern scouts tonight to gather intel Daichi Asakura might have missed. A sharp bite to her lip precedes Karina's deep bow, shutting her eyes as she offers the elder a formal apology. Swirling his cup, the old merchant marvels that Daichi Asakura used a humble snack stall as clever cover to contact the squad. The elder looks up, asking Karina whether the local adventurers noticed such suspicious behavior. Memories of the bandits Daichi Asakura interrogated resurface, and the elder admits an ambush on the road terrifies him far more. Karina listens in silence as the old man closes his eyes, warning her against prying deeper into their factional disputes. Hand pressed to his chin, the elder asks her honest opinion of Daichi Asakura, prompting a grave look from Karina. Remembering his retreating silhouette, Karina attests that Daichi Asakura wields keen wisdom and an intellect far beyond her own. Across the table, the elder clicks coins together as Karina explains how Daichi Asakura calculates complex figures in his head without paper. Taking a sip of liquor, the elder confirms that few seasoned merchants can run mental tallies and seal contracts as swiftly as Daichi Asakura. During their forest drills, Karina watched Daichi Asakura calculate spell trajectories with exact formulas, astounding the elder with her tale. A heavy frown forms on the elder's brow as he asks if Karina remembers the formula Daichi Asakura used, but she shakes her head. Karina confesses that such high-level calculations completely baffled her, making it impossible to memorize. Vivid memories of Daichi Asakura computing equations flood her mind, making him resemble a prestigious university professor. Karina reveals that whenever mental math grew tedious, Daichi Asakura simply aimed a bizarre handheld device at trees to measure distances. Glass in hand, the elder speculates that Daichi Asakura must belong to royalty or carry high aristocratic blood from his homeland. Interrupting him with hands behind her back, Karina counters that Daichi Asakura acts more like a pampered heir of high nobility. The elder sips his drink, asking in genuine surprise why Karina judges Daichi Asakura so harshly. With a grim squint, Karina insists that Daichi Asakura treats every serious crisis with utter carelessness. Doubt fills her eyes as Karina questions whether Daichi Asakura can solve real trouble when everyone around him cleans up his messes. Standing rigid, Karina recalls Daichi Asakura putting on a lively stage performance before a delighted Alicia Hartland. When Karina proposes tightening surveillance on Daichi Asakura, the elder sets his cup down with keen interest. With unwavering seriousness, Karina demands they monitor Daichi Asakura as closely as a covert royal prince. Clasping his hands tightly, the elder demands to know the exact reasoning behind Karina's extreme proposal. One raised hand emphasizes Karina's warning that Daichi Asakura commands top-tier non-attribute magic and carries bags full of otherworldly relics. Beneath the pavilion fabric, Karina adds that Daichi Asakura possesses the intellect to exploit people and surroundings to escape any trap. Images of modern firearms, communication devices, and gathered mana flash in Karina's mind, proving Daichi Asakura could overthrow an entire realm. Sweat drips down Karina's anxious face as she ponders whether Daichi Asakura rules a far more magically advanced nation. Alarmed by the threat of his growing influence, the elder presses a hand to his face and exhales a weary sigh. With a stern scowl, the elder reminds Karina that as the daughter of royal loyalist Count Crusher, she might wish to defeat Daichi Asakura herself. Furious at the provocation, Karina slams her hands against the table, glaring through the tense silence as the elder watches unmoved. Spreading his hands with a disarming grin, the elder chuckles that his harsh words were nothing more than a joke. Karina glares back in fury, warning that given the turmoil in the kingdom of Yendorf, such jokes could easily get him killed. Scratching his nose, the elder concedes that even setting aside noble blood, rival factions will inevitably battle to seize Daichi Asakura. Karina drops her arms, acknowledging that whichever faction gains Daichi Asakura will command overwhelming leverage. A vision of a dark citadel haunts Karina as she warns that foreign powers could lure Daichi Asakura across the border. Twirling his mustache, the elder vows to prevent Daichi Asakura from defecting to a rival kingdom by any means possible. Through the sunlit streets of the town, the party marches forward as Daichi Asakura trails behind with his sword strapped tight. Clasping his hands behind his head, Daichi Asakura asks the companions why they assembled in such a tight formation. With gloves cinched tight, the ponytail-bound Frida turns with a grin to ask why Daichi Asakura dislikes her company. Leaning in close with a tease, Frida asks if having a companion like her improves the squad, earning an awkward nod from Daichi Asakura. Frida gestures toward Dennis, playfully offering to scold him or replace him with a pretty girl if Daichi Asakura prefers, provoking Dennis's rage. Imagining three smiling female recruits, Frida argues a team of lovely maidens beats traveling with a middle-aged veteran. Flustered and red-faced, Daichi Asakura declines the offer as Nick pokes out of his coat and Alicia Hartland giggles behind them. Glancing at Dennis with a slight blush, Frida tells him he is fortunate Daichi Asakura chose to keep him, leaving Dennis mortified. Karina cuts through the banter, ordering telling the squad to stick to the plan and prepare the bandit ambush. Addressing Daichi Asakura directly, Karina explains that both Dennis and Frida are elite B-rank combat mages skilled in melee and ranged warfare. Roofs of wooden homes glide past as Daichi Asakura reflects on the sheer strength of B-rank mages matching Karina's own caliber. Evaluating Dennis and Frida, Daichi Asakura notes that their heavy fire magic could hit even harder than Karina's wind spells, catching both guards off guard with genuine praise. Dennis rubs his stubbled chin with a proud grin, clearly flattered by the compliment from Daichi Asakura. Blushing slightly, Frida chuckles that every guard in Bertram Company wields rank D magic or better, making her own skills feel like the bare minimum. Out in the street, Daichi Asakura admits he always heard Bertram Company hired powerful fighters, but never realized just how elite their ranks were. Village children play outside the wooden cottages as Dennis laughs, pointing out that outsiders mistake them for a standard caravan escort. Leading the way, Karina points out that Dennis excels at large-scale destructive magic capable of breaking enemy morale on the battlefield. Closing his eyes in quiet disbelief, Daichi Asakura wonders if he should just slip away. Yet Frida and Dennis remain completely confident in their aggressive tactics. Karina halts outside a wooden building, locking her gaze on a barrel hanging from an iron chain as Daichi Asakura stops beside her. The wooden barrel serves as the tavern's signboard, prompting Karina to order absolute silence from the group. Right on cue, Nick pokes out from under the collar of Daichi Asakura, letting out a tense, hostile growl. Curious about the agitation, Alicia Hartland steps up to Daichi Asakura and wiggles a finger near Nick to test the familiar's reaction. Ignoring the distraction, Nick hisses toward the doorway, prompting Daichi Asakura to warn the group that spirit magic has detected bandits inside. Karina asks what Nick detected, and Daichi Asakura gives a knowing wink, confirming the thugs are drinking right inside. A confident smile crosses Karina's face as she raises a hand, declaring this mission a breeze before Dennis pushes inside. Inside the rustic tavern, patrons toast heavy ale mugs across food-laden tables beside a staircase leading up to the second floor. Dennis scans the dining hall eagerly as Karina and Daichi Asakura step in behind him, her sharp gaze locking onto a commotion off to the side. Narrowing one eye, Karina mutters that she spotted their targets, putting Daichi Asakura on alert right behind her. Four familiar thugs they beat earlier sit huddled around a table near the stairs, drinking heartily as an aproned waitress walks past. Alicia Hartland commends Daichi Asakura for tracking them down, and Frida covers a casual yawn to praise the quick find. Spotting a torn pant leg with no wound underneath, Daichi Asakura notes that the injured bandit has already been fully healed. Recalling the dark-haired rogue from before, Karina explains that a water mage in their ranks can seal such wounds within minutes. Daichi Asakura ponders the rapid recovery rate, to which Karina adds that even her wind blade cuts heal in 3 minutes flat. Turning to Karina, Daichi Asakura asks if they should blend in as regular customers, but she closes her eyes and decides against it. Dennis slumps down with a gloomy pout, groaning that he genuinely wanted a mug of ale. Patting Dennis on the back with a grin, Frida suggests buying a jug for takeout so they can stake out the targets from outside. Collecting a large jug from the mustached tavern keeper, Dennis rejoins Karina near a street cart outside. The four suspects exit the tavern and head toward the village boundary, tracked closely by Karina from around the corner. Approaching Karina alongside Alicia Hartland, Dennis wonders why those bandits are heading into the woods at this hour. Shadowing the distant figures, the group points out that contacting comrades should not require trekking deep into the woods. Peering past the bend with Dennis and Alicia Hartland, Karina deduces the bandits are delivering an update to an informant hidden in the forest. Dennis rubs his nose with a grin, noting that the escorts of Bertram Company possess far sharper instincts than expected. Four rogues march through the dark trees with a greatsword in tow, noting how Adventurers Guild members call for backup when plans fall apart. Crouched in the brush behind Karina, the team scans the perimeter until Alicia Hartland catches movement ahead. Alicia Hartland quietly alerts the group that someone is concealed in the tall grass, drawing swift looks from Dennis and Karina. Slipping through the foliage with measured steps, Alicia Hartland signals everyone to follow her deeper into the thicket. Taking cover in a patch of tall grass, Alicia Hartland warns that trouble is brewing, prompting Daichi Asakura to peer toward the distance. With a grim expression, Alicia Hartland reveals that overheard chatter points to a village guard leaking intel directly to the bandits. Crouched low, Dennis explains that Adventurers Guild monster hunts rely on local gossip, though Frida notes rural rumors leave huge blind spots. Daichi Asakura asks about the threat level, and Dennis explains that although individual goblins are foolish, overwhelming swarms overrun standard teams. Frida smirks, noting that scouting the terrain always happens alongside the beast extermination. Realizing his suspicions hit the mark, Daichi Asakura deduces that abnormal monster numbers will force the kingdom to deploy heavier military reinforcement. Visualizing the enemy deployment, Daichi Asakura connects the puzzle pieces and uncovers the full strategy behind the assault on Torreno. The bandits lured monster packs towards settlements to summon Adventurers Guild mercenaries, slipping spies into the ranks to test village defenses. Alicia Heartland clarifies that the bandits only seek to crush Bertram Company and pillage the village from the unguarded flank. Daichi Asakura finds the scheme of looting half the town without alerting Bertram Company far too calculated for common thugs. Out in the open clearing, the scouts rendezvous with a second squad as Karina and Alicia Heartland track their defensive posture. Kneeling low, Karina asks if Alicia Heartland can relay the sound, prompting the young mage to close her eyes and channel a spell. Distant bandit voices echo directly into the ears of Daichi Asakura, reporting that Bertram Company is in town and local guards are acting nervous. Amazed by the acoustic trick, Daichi Asakura listens as Karina explains that Alicia Heartland is using wind magic to channel the audio. One rogue scoffs through the wind spell, questioning what the village guards think they are doing snooping around. Two bandit squads conferred in the shadows until Alan brought up the raid on Torreno, catching his men off guard. Hidden in the tall grass, Daichi Asakura listened as the thieves confirmed Torreno was the settlement they plundered. The hook-nosed rogue reminded the squad that no one survived that massacre, hardening Daichi Asakura's resolve. Another thug noted that Bertram Company remained stationary, prompting the scouts to demand their next order. Frida and Dennis listened closely as the outlaws gloated that cornering Bertram Company would yield a massive fortune. Crouched low in the brush, the defenders watched the criminals celebrate their upcoming ambush. Remembering his humiliating defeat against Daichi Asakura and Karina, Alan warned his men not to underestimate the caravan guards. The hook-nosed rogue scoffed that only 2 guards could fight, but Alan insisted 2 elites were more than enough. Smirking, the scout dismissed the B-rank guard, gesturing to the 5 magicians in Ronda waiting in the shadows. That revelation shocked Daichi Asakura and his allies, prompting Nick to poke his head out from his tunic. Daichi Asakura realized the enemy matched their combat rank, and Karina grimly declared this fight would not be simple. Karina slipped away to deliver her scouting report, leaving Daichi Asakura, Nick, and Alicia Heartland standing together. Startling Daichi Asakura from his thoughts, Alicia Heartland smiled and asked him to share stories about his family. Alicia Heartland gushed over his revolutionary modern devices, leaving an intimidated Daichi Asakura nodding in panic. Hesitating to reveal the truth to Alicia Heartland, Daichi Asakura knew he was just a merchant selling everyday goods. Arms crossed, Daichi Asakura searched for a quick distraction to steer Alicia Heartland away from the topic. Nick let out a sleepy yawn, giving Daichi Asakura the perfect topic to capture Alicia Heartland's attention. Pointing at Nick, Daichi Asakura declared that felines were revered as cultural icons across his homeland. With Nick watching nearby, Daichi Asakura and Alicia Heartland dove into the modern world's adoration of cats. Alicia Heartland shared her own love for animals, eager to hear how Daichi Asakura's people elevated them to stardom. Daichi Asakura described dedicated cat cafes and households where humans pampered their pets like royalty. Explaining social networks, Daichi Asakura described how a single photo of a kitten could spread across the entire globe. From designer pet furniture to feline-themed apparel, Daichi Asakura highlighted an entire industry built around pets. Enchanted by the concept of cat-shaped merchandise, Alicia Heartland clutched her chest in pure admiration. Alicia Heartland wondered why tools needed feline shapes, prompting Daichi Asakura to reach into his storage bag for proof. Out came cat-eared slippers, a feline mug, and a matching watch that Daichi Asakura swore no customer could resist. Overcome with excitement, Alicia Heartland flushed red and squealed at the adorable designs. Daichi Asakura listed cat pillows and adapters, charming Alicia Heartland even if she had no idea what electronics were. Dropping to the ground from cuteness overload, Alicia Heartland rose back up, enlightened by Daichi Asakura's philosophy. Steadying her feet, Alicia Heartland praised Daichi Asakura's homeland for mastering both high technology and daily comfort. Tears welled in Alicia Heartland's eyes as an aspiring artificer who had never conceived such brilliant magical designs. Placing a reassuring hand on Alicia Heartland's shoulder, Daichi Asakura urged her not to despair. Kneeling beside Alicia Heartland, Daichi Asakura offered quiet comfort to steady her racing thoughts. He reminded Alicia Heartland that her genius as a craftswoman rivaled any master inventor from his own world. Shifting into a dramatic coach, Daichi Asakura urged Alicia Heartland to embrace the feline spirit as Nick scratched his ear. With theatrical flair, Daichi Asakura welcomed Alicia Heartland across the threshold into a dazzling new world of cuteness. Alicia Heartland begged for guidance, leaving Daichi Asakura exhausted by how seriously she embraced his spur-of-the-moment lesson. Presenting a squishy, paw-shaped stress toy, Daichi Asakura demonstrated how the tactile novelty offered instant relaxation. Unveiling a modern pet carrier, Daichi Asakura coaxed Nick inside, drawing an enchanted gasp from Alicia Heartland. Nick stepped out sporting miniature angel wings and jingle bells, striking a pose that melted Alicia Heartland's heart. A robotic cat rolled forward balancing a tray of drinks beside Nick, highlighting Daichi Asakura's world of tech and pets. Waving her hands in excitement, Alicia Heartland demanded more examples, prompting Daichi Asakura to raise the stakes. Donning plush cat ears and paw mittens, Alicia Heartland followed Daichi Asakura's orders to channel her inner feline. Daichi Asakura commanded her to meow after every sentence, making Alicia Heartland hide her blushing face behind her paws. Twitching her paw gloves, Alicia Heartland arched her back and let out a hesitant meow. Cheering her progress, Daichi Asakura applauded as Alicia Heartland knelt with plush slippers and an attached tail, meowing cutely. Dressed in a full-hooded cat onesie, Alicia Heartland struck a pose that brought Daichi Asakura to tears of pure triumph. Just as Daichi Asakura celebrated Alicia Heartland's transformation, Karina returned from her scout run in stunned disbelief. Back at the ambush point, Daichi Asakura weighed the grim danger posed by the 5 magicians in Ronda. Watching the hook-nosed rogue grin beside his henchmen, Daichi Asakura understood where their arrogant confidence came from. Having clashed directly with the guards, Alan warned the 3 thugs behind him that they were dealing with real monsters. Alan insisted on waiting until the guards moved on, catching Daichi Asakura completely off guard with such caution. One thug laughed, asking if their scarred commander was actually terrified, but Alan shamelessly admitted his fear. Stunned by that confession, the hook-nosed bandit listened as Alan explained Karina made sense. Yet Daichi Asakura defied all logic. Alan scowled, recalling Daichi Asakura putting a piece of lead through his leg, though his subordinate guessed it was earth magic. Remembering Karina and Daichi Asakura, Alan snapped that his enchanted armor would have stopped magic, but this attack was no spell. Another bandit shouted that Daichi Asakura had blasted 2 men's legs off, though his comrade blamed their own dropped guard. Dennis suspected the 6 bandits spotted near Takura village were merely scouts, prompting Frida beside him to ponder the threat. Frustrated by the wasted time, Alan shuffled his feet and insisted on reporting everything back to their main hideout. As the trio retreated into the trees, praying tomorrow's raid was cancelled, a faint rustle made them spin around in alarm. Karina urged everyone onward, guiding the scouts past dense canopies until a jagged canyon cliff opened before them. Dozens of outlaws crowded around supply barrels along the canyon wall, flanked by a towering one-eyed beast. A crooked-nosed rogue scoffed that Alan underestimated his mission, getting thoroughly routed by Karina and Daichi Asakura. Folding his arms, a burly blonde brigand with a trimmed beard demanded confirmation about an actual B-rank magician among the escorts. The scout confirmed Karina wore an adventurer's guild badge, prompting a dark-haired brute to ask if Daichi Asakura outranked her. Pointing to Alan's testimony, the hook-nosed rogue emphasized that Daichi Asakura hid monstrous, deceptive combat strength. Uneasy glances rippled through the mob as the brigands argued over their next tactical move. A hooded figure warned that drawing steel against the Bertram Company would bring catastrophic retaliation upon their gang. Listening to the debate, a boastful cutthroat claimed their overwhelming numbers could easily crush any caravan guard. Doubt quickly spread over facing ranked mages, but a dark-bearded fighter barked at the cowards to hold their ground. A furious shout from the blonde-bearded commander silenced the canyon, snapping Alan and his comrade to attention. Sitting casually in the back, Pete grinned that the village militia mobilizing did not guarantee the Bertram Company would assist them. Flashing a wink, Pete drew a sharp question from the blonde leader, who asked if he had already laid a trap for their targets. From his perch against a barrel, Pete noted Klaus Bertram traveled with the caravan and outlined a plan to lure the militia into traps. Crossing his arms, the blonde leader noted the militia held the north gate, whereas the Bertram Company caravan guarded the south gate. Backing Allen's report, the hook-nosed scout watched Pete smile, predicting the Bertram Company would rush to defend the north gate. Heated debate erupted over slaughtering the militia or grabbing loot before help arrived, earning a baffled stare from Pete. Vulgar cheers rippled through the crowd as the bandits gloated over capturing the young women living in Takura village. Grim silence fell over the blonde leader, utterly unconvinced that their undisciplined thugs could pull off such an operation. Sinking into deep thought, the commander analyzed every flaw in Pete's plan, searching for ways to overcome inevitable obstacles. Greedy shouts echoed through the canyon as the rogues dreamed of pillaging the vast wealth inside the Bertram Company wagons. A dark-bearded fighter growled that assaulting the Bertram Company directly was pure suicide, instantly sobering the rowdy bandits. Stroking his chin with one finger, Pete acknowledged that a B-rank magician posed a massive threat to their raiding party. Prompted by the blonde leader for his take, Pete recalled Allen's terror and declared the coward's judgment completely useless. Rising to his feet with spread arms, Pete emphasized that every Bertram Company escort was lethal and had to be bypassed entirely. With a sly smirk and hand on his chin, Pete revealed that victory required a coordinated ambush. Staring in disbelief, the blonde commander questioned how Pete planned to execute such a daring raid. Arms still outstretched, Pete held the entire gang in rapt attention under the rocky cliffs. Pete clapped his hands together with a wicked grin, promising a swift victory over the guards at the north gate. As cheers erupted among the bandits, Pete narrowed his eyes, explaining that a direct breach would easily break the militia. Pointing to a stick figure drawn in the dirt, Pete claimed a defensive militia would collapse under sustained pressure. If the militia turtled up, Pete noted they could freely loot Takura village, prompting the raiders to thrust their weapons skyward. Closing his eyes with a satisfied grin, Pete anticipated the defenders falling right into their exact playbook. With hands held wide, Pete reasoned that the militia would predictably herd every villager into the square for protection. A curly-haired bandit argued that eliminating the militia would only draw out the Bertram Company guards, catching Allen's gaze. Smirking at the thought of scattered defenders, the curly-haired rogue earned a disgusted grimace from Pete over his sheer stupidity. Pete shifted his stance and warned the blonde chief that pinning the defensive militia would buy them critical time against the Bertram Company. The curly-haired outlaw countered, demanding why they could not simply raid empty houses and flee before reinforcements arrived. Frowning, the curly-haired thug scoffed at Pete's warning, insisting only an incompetent fool would fail to escape the Bertram Company. With arms folded across his chest, the curly-haired rogue boasted they were far too clever to get caught, earning cheers from his comrade. Burying his face in his hands, Pete groans in disbelief at the sheer incompetence surrounding him. The curly-haired bandit calculates the timing, arguing they can clear out the loot before the Bertram Company mobilizes reinforcements. Pete shuts him down, pointing out an evacuated settlement leaves behind empty homes, zero coin, and zero food. Turning to a hooded thug, the curly-haired bandit suggests ambushing the Bertram Company caravan directly, sparking an idea in Pete. With frantic hand gestures, Pete warns that a direct clash with the Bertram Company is suicide against elite mercenaries. The curly-haired rogue counters that hesitation invites an immediate counterattack, making Pete grit his teeth. Pete claps his hands together with a sly grin, praising the bandit for grasping the tactical dilemma. Rushing past him, Pete lays out the enemy layout. The Bertram Company will divide forces between the south and the town center. On the assault map, Pete diagrams a feint against northern guards to lure the central Bertram Company squad out of position. Raising a single finger with a smirk, Pete explains that crushing the militia breaks the locals' morale, isolating the Bertram Company. Pete strides across the room, predicting they can plunder the Bertram Company before the night order can intervene. Two bandits envision unguarded supply wagons, debating whether fleeing villagers might try hiding inside the Bertram Company freight. Cutting through the chatter, a blonde rogue calls out that the northern militia strike is merely a decoy for Pete's true agenda. Pete throws his arms wide in delight, confirming the rogue's deduction to the dismay of the anxious crew. A sinister grin spreads across Pete's face as he prepares to reveal the real operation to his tense, waiting gang. Across the settlement, a heavy fist slams onto the table as an elder roars furious commands at his trembling aides. Standing before before his council, the village elder warns that traitorous bandits are already embedded in the Adventurers Guild ranks. Miniature spear-wielding soldiers move across the table as leaders debate the leak and how to hold until the night order arrives. Reviewing how intel leaked near Takura village, the elder suspects repeat tactics, prompting Daichi Asakura to ponder the trap. Over steaming mugs, Daichi Asakura, Alicia Heartland, Frida, and Dennis sit with Nick as Daichi Asakura rests his head on his arm. Daichi Asakura assures the group from behind folded arms that the council will adopt their joint defense strategy. His tactical layout marks the walled perimeter. Militia and Adventurers Guild hold the north, and the Bertram Company locks down the south. Moving marker pieces. Daichi Asakura explains that a central Bertram Company reserve can reinforce either flank or intercept wall breaches. To limit collateral damage, Daichi Asakura adds that civilians near both gates will be secured inside underground shelters. Ready to pitch the concept to the Bertram Company, Daichi Asakura notes the disguised bandit adventurers will be stationed at the north gate. Dennis raises a hand, asking if Daichi Asakura has prepared for total failure should the defense collapse. Winking confidently, Frida notes the elders lack any better option or time to implement one, leaving them to rely on Daichi Asakura. Stunned by Frida's candid take, Daichi Asakura blinks until an outside commotion draws his and Alicia Heartland's focus. Frida calls for everyone to move, stepping into sunlit stone corridors with Dennis to meet the leadership. In the hallway, the group meets Karina and Klaus Bertram, who sternly demands strict adherence to the tactical plan. Assignments: station Daichi Asakura, Alicia Heartland, Karina, Dennis, and Frida beside Klaus Bertram at the south gate. At the village center, scarred veteran Captain Jeffrey commands the mobile guard, ready to back up either gate at a moment's notice. As readiness orders echo across camp, warriors scurry between wagons, leaving one distinctive tent standing apart. Inside, Daichi Asakura holds a firearm beside a water bottle, uncertain if standard bullets can penetrate enchanted bandit armor. Glancing over an array of guns, Daichi Asakura debates which caliber provides the right stopping power for the raid. Full combat gear flashes through Daichi Asakura's mind as he realizes shooting blindly is foolish without spotting B-ranked mages. Firing up tactical drills on his laptop, Daichi Asakura weighs suppressive fire against knocking out the whole mob with gas. Nick bounds in carrying a cloth bundle, playfully nudging Daichi Asakura away from the arsenal for some attention. Static buzzes from the tabletop walkie-talkie, startling Daichi Asakura as an intercepted voice reveals the raid is a decoy. Spinning toward the receiver, Daichi Asakura listens as the transmission names the Bertram Company as the true target. A smirk crosses Daichi Asakura's face as he promises Nick they will play later, turning his full focus to the radio. Listening alongside Nick, Daichi Asakura feels cold sweat bead on his brow as the enemy deception sinks in. The transmission keeps blaring, mocking the militia as easy prey as bandit commanders coordinate their true strike. Pete boasts over the airwaves, declaring that a rare prize like the Bertram Company caravan outshines any simple village raid. A blonde cohort speaks up, emphasizing that capturing the caravan's rich cargo remains the main prize. Pete chuckles, replying that cargo is great, but capturing Klaus Bertram alive is the ultimate jackpot. When asked who recognizes the merchant lord, Pete points to dark-haired Joseph, confirming both know Klaus Bertram on sight. Laying out the scheme, Pete explains that a plant will drop forged orders for Adventurers Guild guards at the north gate to find. Bandits murmur in approval, predicting the Bertram Company will rush reinforcements north or consolidate in town, pleasing Pete. Raising his hand, Pete anticipates elite guards will stay by Klaus Bertram, confident his own top fighters can crush them. A curly-haired rogue jabs a furious finger at Pete, reminding him how dangerous the Bertram Company guards are before demanding a fight. Pete winks with a smug grin, claiming his trio behind him guarantees victory once they capture Klaus Bertram. A hooded cutthroat warns Joseph not to incinerate the prey before tempers flare into hushed curses across the hideout. Grinning in the shadows, 5 magicians in Rhonda prepare for blood, standing apart as disciplined, battle-hardened elites. Pete raises a finger with a narrow gaze, insisting they unleash their secret weapon to seal total victory. Eerie snarls echo from the pitch-black gorge, drawing every bandit's uneasy gaze into the cavernous depths. Shivering in dread, the raiders agree that unleashing their trump card leaves no room for regret. Alan thrusts his hand forward, barking orders to forge a decoy letter and direct the strike force toward the the North Gate tomorrow night. As the cave empties, Alan demands every detail in the fake missive look authentic ahead of tomorrow night's raid. Crouching in the dark, Daichi Asakura listens to the radio feed as Pete coordinates the immediate nighttime assault. A sudden knock and a voice asking to enter snaps Daichi Asakura out of his focused wiretapping. Karina reports that Captain Jeffrey intercepted enemy intel, so Daichi Asakura pockets his device to meet Klaus Bertram immediately. Inside the torchlit command tent, Klaus Bertram raises a hand over the seized letter, declaring that the bandits attack tonight. Daichi Asakura and the squad listen as Klaus Bertram displays the letter captured from a suspicious scout outside the perimeter. With a stern expression, Klaus Bertram deduces the enemy knows the village militia is garrisoned in the center of Takura village. Frowning deeper, Klaus Bertram warns that the outlaws intend to butcher the guards quickly and seize the North Gate. Tactical sketches outline the ambush, revealing how the raiders plan to defeat each unit individually before striking the caravan next. Dennis recognizes ruthless military coordination, prompting Frida to remark that such a scheme demands a leader fit for the night order. Circling the war table, Dennis asks why they were summoned, prompting Klaus Bertram to slam his palm down with authority. Klaus Bertram refuses to let marauders run rampant, ordering the squad to rush north and reinforce the defenders at the North Gate. Dennis salutes obediently, but asks where Klaus Bertram will remain, prompting Karina to volunteer as personal protection for the merchants. Leaning back with laced fingers, Klaus Bertram assures the room that the Bertram Company staff will keep him perfectly safe. Dennis argues they fight best knowing Klaus Bertram is safe, and Frida insists that accepting Karina's escort is the smarter choice. Klaus Bertram counters that 5 magicians in Ronda demand Karina on the front line, but Daichi Asakura sees through the real trap. Stepping forward urgently, Daichi Asakura demands that Klaus Bertram halt orders and listen before making a fatal mistake. Insisting the matter is critical, Daichi Asakura warns against abandoning the South Gate, baffling and irritated Klaus Bertram. Placing his electronic device on the table, Daichi Asakura tells Klaus Bertram that the enemy's entire plan is a calculated hoax. The speaker crackles to life, with recorded enemy voices plotting to feed false intel and lure the Bertram Company straight into a trap. Staring in utter disbelief, Klaus Bertram leans over the black box as clear human voices detail every phase of the ambush. Frida gasps, Dennis freezes, and Karina reels beside a smiling Alicia Hartland as Daichi Asakura reveals the enemy's real scheme. Stunned, Klaus Bertram demands to know what artifact Daichi Asakura holds and how it could capture distant enemy speech. Planted deep in the southern forest a kilometer away, Daichi Asakura explains the bug transmitter captured every word. Klaus Bertram reels as Daichi Asakura confirms the broadcast is fresh, right before frantic shouts outside startle the tent. A breathless scout bursts through the flaps, shouting that the North Gate is under attack and a flare has lit the sky. Rising in hesitation, Klaus Bertram grips the table until Daichi Asakura raises his hand and offers a decisive counterplan, pointing at the map with total conviction. Daichi Asakura reveals how they will turn the raiders' own deception against them. Across the drawn lines, Daichi Asakura shows how they will flank the southern attackers and spring a trap before the gates. The bandits must believe their diversion succeeded, he insists, tracing the precise ambush route on parchment. To complete the ruse, Daichi Asakura explains they must convince the enemy that all southern defenders rush to the North Gate. In truth, Daichi Asakura, Karina, Frida, Dennis, and Alicia Hartland will guard the caravan, sending disguised villagers north instead. Standing in the open square, Klaus Bertram serves as lone bait to lure the outlaws into a crushing pincer ambush. Buying time for Klaus Bertram to retreat is the priority, yet Karina slams the table in outrage at the extreme danger. Daichi Asakura calmly notes there is no time left to hesitate, rejecting Karina's plea to pull every guard back to the South Gate. Crossing his arms, Dennis rejects the idea, and Frida adds that the raiders will strike long before reinforcements can return. Weighing a stand in the town square, Karina argues holding the North Gate lets the Bertram Company crush the assault with sheer numbers. Karina throws her hands up seeking agreement, but Dennis and Frida counter that her plan only works in a straightforward duel. Klaus Bertram listens with a heavy frown as Frida points out that the merchant leader would never endorse Karina's gamble. Folding his arms, Daichi Asakura reminds a startled Karina that the outlaws aim to kidnap Klaus Bertram and slaughter trapped civilians. A heavy gloom sinks over Karina, clenching her fists with lowered eyes under Daichi Asakura's steady gaze. Facing a doubtful Klaus Bertram, Daichi Asakura shatters the tense silence by declaring he has a secret weapon. Klaus Bertram clasps his fingers before his face, questioning whether the special weapon of Daichi Asakura can truly defeat 60 bandits, including the 5 magicians in Ronda. The merchants wonder if Daichi Asakura commands wide-range destruction magic or wields an equally devastating magical artifact. Daichi Asakura presses his lips together, promising he can incapacitate every raider without taking a single life, leaving Klaus Bertram completely baffled. Karina slams her fists onto the table, furiously shouting that bandits are no joke and demanding Daichi Asakura drop the arrogance until Dennis steps in to restrain her. Stepping between them to hold Karina back, Dennis bluntly states that no sensible warrior would believe Daichi Asakura could defeat 60 cutthroats alone. Dennis scowls, adding that sparing all 60 bandits in such an onslaught sounds completely impossible. Klaus Bertram raises a hand in agreement with Dennis, demanding that Daichi Asakura explain the exact mechanics of this non-lethal strike. Reaching into his storage pouch, Daichi Asakura admits he hoped to keep his secret weapon hidden, but offers a full demonstration to settle their doubts. Revealing the strange tactical devices under the flickering torches, Daichi Asakura shows the group the specialized gear for the ambush. Outside the quiet village near the river bridge, the team waits in position where Klaus Bertram had originally ordered Alicia Heartland to stay off the front line. Alicia Heartland argued that casting heavy offensive spells outside town spared civilian homes, forcing Klaus Bertram to back down and permit her deployment. Knowing that long-range bombardment is the specialty of Alicia Heartland, Daichi Asakura turns toward Karina as she questions his absolute confidence in the plan. Daichi Asakura reassures them that if Klaus Bertram finds the risk intolerable, the guards can pull back and leave him to wipe out the raiders with rifle fire. Popping up right behind Daichi Asakura with an eager grin, Alicia Heartland promises to back him up with artillery spells if anything goes sideways. Karina shouts across the silent road that she refuses to leave the two of them alone, but Daichi Asakura reminds her that Stage 2 requires everyone in position. Thrusting her hand forward, Karina vows to stand with them to the finish, swearing to drag both allies out herself if the fallback collapses. Rubbing his cheek with an awkward grin, Daichi Asakura tells Karina to relax and trust the operation. Dennis rubs his forehead over the boundless bravado of Daichi Asakura, but Frida smiles and reminds them never to lower their guard against any foe. Karina bluntly points out that despite the top-tier magical talent of Daichi Asakura, he still lacks real battlefield experience, catching him off guard. Poking Daichi Asakura in the chest, Karina warns that countless brilliant mages have died to low-life thugs simply because they lacked seasoned instincts. Every fallen prodigy shared the same fatal flaw of pure arrogance, and the harsh truth from Karina hits Daichi Asakura like a splash of cold water. Clearing his throat, Daichi Asakura cites an ancient proverb from his homeland: "Know yourself and know your enemy, and you need not fear 100 battles." Karina tilts her head in confusion at the unfamiliar quote, but Alicia Heartland simply beams with quiet admiration behind her. Daichi Asakura explains the maxim to Karina: understanding both your own limits and the strength of the enemy guarantees absolute victory in any conflict. Alicia Heartland marvels at the deep wisdom of Daichi Asakura, prompting a begrudging nod from Karina as the lesson sinks in. Raising his hand, Daichi Asakura emphasizes that intercepting the battle plan of the enemy is their ultimate advantage, though Karina warns against reckless optimism. Sensing the squad still views him as a green novice, Daichi Asakura spreads his arms and insists his strategic intellect far outweighs raw combat years. Having absorbed countless historical texts and tactical doctrines back in Japan, Daichi Asakura possesses warfare knowledge far beyond any standard scholar. Unshaken by his first real skirmish, Daichi Asakura braces to test his strategies under fire until Alicia Heartland gasps an urgent warning. Shouting the first alarm, Alicia Heartland warns that the bandits are 1 kilometer out, prompting Karina to draw her blade and demand defensive body enchantments. With the enemy closing that final kilometer, Daichi Asakura holds position as Alicia Heartland spots an unexpected anomaly in the tree line. Calling out across the line, Alicia Heartland warns that 6 royal monkeys lead the charge, shocking the veterans even as Daichi Asakura smirks. Karina and Daichi Asakura rush back to Alicia Heartland, urgently asking who could possibly tame and coordinate vicious royal monkeys in in battle. Pointing toward the tree line, Karina tallies 66 targets in total, confirming that beast tamers are directing the 6 royal monkeys. Panic grips the squad as Dennis notes the enemy force exceeds their intel, prompting Frida to advise an immediate retreat. Alicia Hartland warns that the horde is picking up speed, but Daichi Asakura stands firm, instructing Karina to alert Klaus Bertram as he prepares to stall them alone. Karina snaps in fury at his madness, yet Daichi Asakura only grins, noting that a larger crowd merely requires a few extra payloads. Dumbfounded by his reckless claim, Karina freezes, only for Alicia Hartland to step forward and declare she will fight beside Daichi Asakura. Alicia Hartland explains that her wide-range magic is useless inside the village, smiling as she casts physical enhancement to match Daichi Asakura in speed. Karina insists that everyone obey her as squad leader, but Alicia Hartland cuts her off with a shout that the raiders have closed to 700 meters. Dennis mutters that arguing will get them killed, prompting Karina to grit her teeth and order Dennis, Frida, and Daichi Asakura to hold the line together. Drawing her blade alongside Dennis, Frida puts their lives in the hands of Daichi Asakura, who answers with a confident grin and a thumbs up. Tracking the unseen foes at 600 meters, Alicia Hartland raises her hand as a signal, prompting Daichi Asakura to prepare as the gap closes to 500. Every eye focuses on Alicia Hartland as she drops one finger to signal 400 meters, and Daichi Asakura gently pats Nick resting inside his jacket. Alicia Hartland drops her fingers from 3 to 2, and the murderous faces of the charging bandits finally break into plain view across the open field. Seeing their savage grins at 200 meters, Daichi Asakura braces to draw his sidearm instantly if the non-lethal trap fails to stop them. Lowering her hand to a single finger, Alicia Hartland marks the exact moment the enemy swarm crosses into the kill zone. As the defenders shut their eyes and clamp their ears, Daichi Asakura triggers his dimensional magic, raining modern tactical grenades from the sky. The bandits stare up in sheer bewilderment at the metal cylinders dropping above them, right before an explosive blinding flash detonates across their front ranks. Pete and his vanguard collapse in agony as the overwhelming shockwave and deafening flash tear through their senses. Shielding his eyes and ears from the blinding stun grenade, Daichi Asakura waited out the blast before rising to check the trap. Blinded bandits writhed on the dirt, clutching their faces, completely disoriented, with even the royal monkeys collapsed across the field. A smirk crossed the face of Daichi Asakura as he tapped Karina on the back, signaling that the blinding lights had faded and the bandits were down. Dennis stared in sheer shock at the inexplicable weapon, and Frida peered across the field in disbelief at the incapacitated bandits. Whirling on Daichi Asakura, Karina demanded to know who he really was, though he met her piercing glare without flinching. Daichi Asakura gestured to the stunned allies, declaring it was time to capture the helpless bandits before leading the advance. Karina trailed close behind Daichi Asakura with a sharp stare, though he figured his allies simply needed time to process modern tactics. To secure the area, Daichi Asakura cast an enchantment binding net over the bandits, ensuring no one could mount a counterattack.